You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
Good afternoon, this is Force 13 Live. We are covering extremely dangerous Hurricane Lidia, which has pulled an extremely fast one, I imagine, on absolutely everyone, rapidly intensifying in the pressure of 942 millibars. This storm is still intensifying at this time, and it could be potentially rivaling those of Hurricane Madeline in 1976 and Patricia in 2015 for the second and strongest landfalls in the Eastern Pacific Basin, respectively. My name is Ethan Bruning, and I'm joined by my live team consisting of a few people today. We have Nathan, Charlie, and Typheon. How are you guys doing?
Good.
All right. Everyone's shocked that Force 13 went with 140 miles per hour, but it was a special NHC update from 3:30 local time. So we're running with their numbers, aren't we?
Yes, that is exactly the National Hurricane Center's numbers. They have gone with an intensity of 140 miles per hour and a pressure of 942 millibars. I'll pull up the update statement here real quick and read it out here. This was issued about half an hour ago. They say, recent satellite data indicate that Lidia has continued to rapidly strengthen and has estimated maximum winds of near 140 miles per hour. That's 220 kilometers per hour. Lidia is now an extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane on the Saffir Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. Pressure is estimated to be 942. Some additional strengthening is possible before Lidia makes landfall this evening, and if you ask me, that appears to be ongoing right now.
Quite surprising that they updated it so quickly after their 3 p.m. advisory at 3:30, based just on satellite, which, to be honest, is a very rare move.
Yeah, I mean, this storm has completely blown up in the past few hours. I know that in particular, an hour ago, there wasn't really an eye of any sorts, a few hours ago, and then all of a sudden, within the space of an hour, the eye temperature warmed from basically negative 60 degrees Celsius well into the positives now. I think it's around 10 degrees Celsius right now. And that kind of warming rate, I don't think that we've ever seen that in the Eastern Pacific, to be honest, Nathan. Maybe a few storms in the Western Pacific have done that, but I can't recall any instances of that in the Eastern Pacific, of that fast of an eye temperature warming.
But it is, it's the eye was there to begin with. It's just it's more visible to us now, so it doesn't always work exactly that way. But clearly, still, it's a very impressive performance from Lidia this afternoon.
Absolutely, and we have another beast on the other side of the Pacific as well. I'll just have to pull up imagery on it here real quick, and that is Belovin. And wow, what a show Belovin is putting on now. And just looking at it now, that eye has really cleared out in the past few frames. And of course, we went with an intensity of 145 miles per hour for the stream. JTWC are hopelessly behind. They have this storm at, get this, only winds of 115 miles per hour right now. And is probably pushing, getting up towards near Category 5 status right now, if I had to guess, Nathan.
I would give it 150 at the moment, and that could be conservative.
Absolutely. And would you say that Belovin has a decent chance of gaining Category 5 status pretty shortly?
Well, I didn't think so at first, but obviously now with its appearance, ever since before it reached the Mariana Islands, it started to really show off a very good eye. You can see behind me, if I turn my light off, you can see a little bit better the radar scope from Guam. The eye of the storm, you can see it over there, just about to leave the radar range. And even at that distance, it looks very impressive. So really, really impressive. It's a shame we can't get the radar on the whole storm, of course, and the center of it properly, but we've been watching it, and since, once again, before it reached the islands and its closest pass to Saipan, it was looking really impressive in terms of its eye structure, and continuing to improve. Satellite, particularly in the last 12 hours, has been very impressive.
I believe there are some rumors that we might be making a Category 5 call later on. We'll have to wait and see, though. I've got the National
Rumors
Hurricane
from
Center's.
where, Ethan? You can't just
Well,
say
well,
things
well, just
like that.
based on satellite imagery. I mean, just look at the storm. I mean, it is remarkable that we are having two basically explosively intensifying storms on both sides of the Pacific. Last time that I can recall that this happened, for anyone that's wondering, was 2018, and that was Walaka and Kong Ray. Of course,
Gee.
both of those got the Category 5 status. Not saying that Lydia.
That's the first time tonight.
Yeah, it won't be the last if I had a guess.
He's been
But
doing that a
either
few
way,
times.
two very strong storms. Of course, Lydia is our main focus right now. I've got the National Hurricane Center's forecast cones up. I don't know if you want to go over the watches and warnings right now, Nathan.
Oh, I didn't have those. I can go and get them. So Ethan's just taking a moment away. Hurricane warning for the La Isla Maria. Those are the islands off the coast of the western coast of Mexico, and you can see that marked out on that National Hurricane Center cone, the islands offshore. And of course, from Manzanillo to El Roblito, also a hurricane warning. And of course, in the middle of all that, really, is Puerto Vallarta, and that's an area that we're very concerned about moving forward as we get closer to this landfall, which will be in the next 6 hours. A tropical storm warning for El Roblito to Mazatlan, and from Punta San Telmo to Manzanillo. Those are marked out in the blue outlines on that National Hurricane Center forecast. So, of course, it's clear that hurricane force winds will be arriving rather shortly. Tropical storm force winds are probably already occurring along that coastal area. And very powerful winds are now almost assured. It turned out that the GFS model was right when it was calling for a real blow up in intensity on its final run towards the coast, and indications from that GFS model that it might have had a chance to peak and then weaken before landfall, and I'm afraid it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It does appear as though Lydia will be intensifying all the way up until landfall, considering that it's probably only going to be in about 3 hours.
Yeah, landfall is not that far away. I don't really think that this storm will get to Category 5 status, but of course, with the rate of intensification, you can't rule anything out. I mean, if there was to be a chance of Category 5 for Lydia, it would be extremely, extremely low. Like, we're talking like maybe 1 to 2%. It would have to really slow down if it really wants to hit Cat 5, which is not going to happen at all. But, I mean, it's pretty unavoidable now that this is going to be a Category 4 at landfall. And just for some of the history nerds out there, the last time that a major hurricane passed very close or over the city of Puerto Vallarta, it has never happened before, and this could be the first one to do it in history. And that is a very big city that has gotten very lucky, I guess you could say, with a lot of major hurricanes. I know that Roslyn passed very close last year, and I know that Kenna did as well in 2002. Those are very two close calls that I remember, very strong close passes. But never has the city gotten a direct eye wall from the storm. And here are some webcams that we have on the scene in Puerto Vallarta. This is at the Playa d'Este Grand Park Royal in Puerto Vallarta. I hope I spelled that correctly or pronounced that correctly. And the waves are very calm there on the beach there. And it won't be too long until the surf and winds pick up here with the approach of Lydia.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, depending on even if the storm miraculously weakens before it hits landfall, it will still carry a very powerful storm surge, and as well as especially once it gets inland and weakens, it will weaken quickly. But as it weakens, it will dump a lot of rainfall. Flooding, mudslides, flash flooding is going to be a major issue that needs to be taken care of. It's not just with a major storm like this; it can happen with every storm. But with a storm of this caliber, you have to be on high alerts for those threats, as well as the increased wind threat and storm surge threat that this storm will bring to the mainland of Mexico.
Absolutely. If you do have any comments or questions, you can send those down in the comment section down below. Be sure to tag us at 413. It'll light up nice and big and bright for me. Do we think that Kenna of 2002 is a good analog in terms of track? I don't actually, because Kenna was more so like kind of like a more northwesterly Patricia, I guess you could say, where it formed and made a very, very gradual recurve in, kind of like Patricia did. This storm has obviously done nothing like that. It formed way out to sea and sort of really took its time to make this turn. And now that it's made this turn, it's really picked up its movement speed. That part, the movement speed aspect of these things, of these hurricanes coming in, that part is pretty normal for Eastern Pacific storms of this time. But the overall analog of this storm, I don't really know if there is really any analog to this, to be honest.
You caught me off guard on that one. I'll have to do some digging, of course, and how rare it is for Puerto Vallarta to get a powerful impact such as this, even though many storms, even in the last 10 years, have come close. I mean, I remember we were thinking about it possibly during Willa in 2018, that year in which the Pacific went mad, Ethan.
I do remember that. I do. But yeah, Puerto Vallarta has been very lucky. That they have been a few close calls, but in the end, they have managed to avoid the direct eye wall of a major hurricane pretty much every single time that they've had a close call. Of course, they've been within the tropical storm force wind field of major hurricanes. They've been within one already this year. That was, I forget that, whatever the B name was, Blanca, I think it was. No, it wasn't Blanca. Or was it Blanca? I think it might have been. But it was the B name earlier on this year. That was a hurricane that made landfall just to the southeast of Puerto Vallarta, and I believe that bring impacts to the city. So they've already gotten a tropical cyclone impact this season. And
it wasn't Blanca, but I can't think of what it was.
I know. It was Beatriz. Beatriz was the name. Thank
Beatriz.
you. But either way, this is going to be a very significant impact for the city, and will probably be talked about for quite some time. Even if they don't get the eye, they can still entirely get the northern eye wall of this storm. And given the satellite imagery, I mean, just look at how strong that northern and particularly the northwestern side of the eye is.
Well, continuing to get better. I'm just slightly adrift here because I'm working on what will happen after we finish this stream tonight, and that's why I'm not presenting. Working on an automated feed, of course. We want to keep this going after our commentary. If that's after landfall for Lidia, then we'll of course still be showing the spotlight on Beloved as it gets to its peak intensity. So. And I'll also be producing a TCOS update shortly, and we'll see whether we've entered code red or not. And we'll also see if there's any new... well, I don't know whether Ethan will take it on board, but whether I've got any new wind estimates.
Just before we go to the key messages graphic I've got pulled up on my screen, Nathan, just a quick question for you. Was that previous TCOS rating that you did? I know you did one, I believe, this morning for Lidia. What was the peak intensity that you were forecasting at that time?
Let's have a look. It was 100 miles per hour.
Well, I think that's been a bit overblown. So if I had
that's
to
what
guess,
the NHC were forecasting too at that point.
Yeah, so if I had to guess, we're probably going to be in code red, probably. If not for Lidia, probably for Beloved, probably.
No, Beloved's not near any big populations. So
Well, now that it's moved to Guam.
That's not going to happen. But Lydia, maybe.
Just a quick question here: do most hurricanes in the Eastern Pacific move out to sea, and do some hit Mexico and the Baja California Peninsula, particularly during early October and into late October, maybe into early November? This is the time frame of where we really have to watch closely for these so-called Eastern Pacific recurvatures, as we call them. Basically, what they do is they form, and initially they head either out towards the west or the west-northwest, and then they recurve back into land, sort of how Lydia has done, sort of kind of like how Rosalind did last year and Patricia did in 2015. These kind of tracks are most likely to happen during October and into early November.
Mm-hmm.
That is the typical track for this time of the year. Albeit there are some times where you do have storms that form during this time frame and do move out to sea and do move off towards the west and towards the west-northwest. But in general, the favored track is recurvatures into Mexico during this time frame. For the rest of the season, though, it varies. Of course, for earlier on in the season and very late in the season, you have tracks that could form in the very eastern part of the basin and could make landfall at Mexico as most of the time as weak tropical storms. But generally, during a majority of the season, it's out to sea tracks, and that is what has been the general trend this season, of course.
October is such a tumultuous month worldwide as well.
It really is. Getting on towards the key messages now for the National Hurricane Center that they produced here. They say, Lidia is expected to make landfall in west central Mexico as a major hurricane this evening. Life-threatening hurricane force winds are expected within the hurricane warning area. Heavy rains from Lidia will likely produce flash and urban flooding, along with possible mudslides in areas of higher terrain across the state of Nayarit, southern portions of the state of Sinaloa, and coastal portions of the state of Jalisco in western Mexico. A dangerous storm surge is expected near and to the south of where the center of Lidia moves ashore along the coast of west central Mexico. Near the coastline, the storm surge will be accompanied by large interceptive waves. Swells from Lidia will cause dangerous surf and rip current conditions along the west coast of Mexico and the Baja California Peninsula during the next day or so. The one good thing that I can give about Lidia is, given within 18 hours from now, Lidia will probably be nothing more than a remnant low over Mexico. So this storm is absolutely going to fall apart whenever it moves inland, mainly due to land interaction, because this area of Mexico is very, very mountainous, but also due to high amounts of wind shear that's going to be tearing the storm apart. So this storm is going to be weakening quite rapidly as it heads inland. But of course, we got to get through landfall first, and this storm is still intensifying as it heads up to landfall. How strong does it get? That's the question to be answered over the next few hours.
Quite a lot of other topics as well to be talking about. The National Hurricane Center put out a special advisory, a special outlook not long ago for the Atlantic, downgrading the chances of the western Gulf of Mexico system that they had at 30% down to 10%, which I found quite fascinating. And Ethan, if you'll allow me, I would just like to make an apology for last night's tropical weather bulletin, where there was a bit of a honest mistake. I don't know, I must have got distracted and I missed out two of the on this day storms that were active in the Indian region. So I almost sparked an international incident there overnight. So that was an honest error there, omitting Cyclone Luban and Titli, which were both active on October 10th, 2018, as Category 5 Michael was making landfall.
Yeah, I remember that landfall. I tracked that one
is
very
now
closely.
going to be doing exactly making a Category 4 landfall.
Yeah, thankfully it's not going to be anywhere close to Michael's strength. With that being said, though, the eye has sort of deframed. I don't know if deframe is the right word. It sort of capitulated on the latest satellite imageries, and I'm not entirely sure what to make of it, to be honest. I don't know whether that's because the eye is clouding over, maybe due to some land interaction, or if it's mainly something to do with maybe some convection bursts happening over the center. What do you think, Nathan?
Haven't looked at it in the last few minutes, but I saw when we were going on the air that it looked like the eastern side of it was getting a little bit bunched up as if some land interaction was starting to occur. It still looks stunning on visible imagery right now, just navigating to infrared. I wouldn't. I'm not that concerned about how that eye is looking, to be honest. I think it's still in progress, and I don't see any signs of weakening at the moment.
And how bad is the zenith angle on this satellite? I don't know.
It's about as bad as it'll get, because it's about 106 degrees is the middle point between GOES 16 and GOES 18. So neither of them are in prime viewing angles for this storm.
So there might be some angle, I guess you could say, that so the eye is probably a lot more clear than what we're seeing. Probably that's what I'm hearing.
Possibly. Yeah, that's possible. And we're bearing that in mind. We have to look more at the eastern side of the eye, as that would be more obscured from GOES 16 than the western side.
Of course, and we are continuing to monitor Typhoon Balavan here in the Western Pacific. I know that we just had a question on that. I lost the question. But any news on Balavan is what they're saying. Well, where do we start? It's
There's still typhoon warnings for Rota, Tinian, and Saipan, and there are tropical storm warnings for the rest of the Northern Mariana Islands. So it's not over for those areas yet.
That's really unfortunate. I mean, at most,
I should mention that there are no warnings in Japan at the moment. I do wonder whether they might raise gale advisories for Iwajima and the Ogasawara Islands. It will head in that direction. But apart from that, there are no other land areas that will be at risk, unless you want to count extratropical, possibly heading for Alaska.
Yeah, I really don't think that we'll be seeing any sort of big watches or warnings being issued with this storm. So it's pretty much all out to sea for this storm, thankfully, at this point. The only thing that I can see the Mariana Islands getting at this point is really just maybe some strong gusts due to the outer bands, and of course some heavy rainfall. There's always that threat. But I mean, to be honest, it's not really that much. The overall impact from the storm in the Mariana Islands is coming to a close relatively quickly.
And be thankful, because right now is an absolute powerhouse, and underneath all of that massive amounts of convection, it's probably dropping up to 24 inches of rain. That was depicted by computer models. So if there was land underneath that storm right now, you would be seeing 24 inches of rain, most likely. That's about 600 millimeters. So, and couple that with the very powerful winds.
Absolutely, and if I had to guess, I'd probably bump it up to 150 miles per hour if I had to guess right about now. And I imagine you'd probably go 155 at this point.
I don't know. I'll be doing a TCOS update shortly, and I'm also working on an automated stream, of course, for when we're done here. So I'm going to shift to a TCOS update now. It shouldn't take too long, as I've only got 3 areas of interest on my charts, so I'll let you know.
Someone is asking us, what is the eye temperature on both of these storms? Well, let's have a look. We'll start with Balavan. I'm using a different website here on my other screen to get the eye temperature. Right now, the eye temperature on Balavan, I haven't seen this myself, this is the first time of me looking at it. 17.3 degrees Celsius. This is satellite estimated. So if I had to guess, it's probably a little bit warmer than that if I had to guess. So either
what did
way,
Recon find?
well, this is in Balavan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about Lidia.
Yeah, this is Balavan. So either way, a very warm eye has really cleared out in the last hour or so. And if I had to guess, will probably shortly become a Category 5 storm. Looking at Lidia, it's hard to say exactly what the eye temperature is given the zenith angle. and given that the eye is clouding over a little bit. It peaked earlier at around 10 degrees Celsius. Obviously, it's probably come down a little bit since then. If I had to guess, it's probably hovering maybe right around 0 degrees Celsius, maybe getting up towards 5 if I had a rough guess. Of course, since the zenith angle is just so bad on my imagery, it's telling me that it's got an eye temperature of negative 39 degrees Celsius, which isn't true, quite frankly.
Yeah, and you won't get any better indications.
Yeah, it really is an unfortunate situation regarding that eye temperature, though. Very warm and very powerful hurricane. Is there a low chance of tornado or waterspout formations from Lidia? I don't believe so. And is there any lightning in Lidia? Yes, a lot of it too. I believe I was watching our Discord server postings earlier, by the way. You can join in the link in the description at discord.gg/force13. And when this storm is really intensifying, and probably still has it, if I had to guess, the entire eye wall, all 360 degrees around the eye, was covered in lots of lightning, Nathan.
Always a sure sign of a powerful storm, and often an intensifying one.
Absolutely.
I'm just looking at GOES 18 imagery, and I'm sure that there will still be an area in that eye that is probably in the +10 range.
Yep, that would not surprise me too. It's just a question of where exactly. And let's go ahead and get a distance meter check, I guess you could say. So
All right.
Right here, that's a terrible way to draw the eye. So right here is roughly the eye of Lidia. I've circled it out here. Let's go ahead and drop down the satellite imagery. There's the coastline of Mexico. I believe it's alternate D. Yes, it is. Okay. Let's see how far the closest distance is to land, reasonably for landfall. Let's put on the let's take an extra step actually. Let's put on the forecast cone. So maybe around 60 to 65 miles until this makes landfall. And to the city of Puerto Vallarta, we're looking at maybe around 100 miles to go until this until the center of the storm passes. Of course, the center of the eye is probably going to pass towards the south of the city, but you never can be too sure because these things can wobble. So I'll have to wait and see. But the closest to the let's just say there's the edge of the eye wall. 75 miles to go and counting for the edge of the eye wall to Puerto Vallarta.
Tell you what, Ethan, looking at its movement right now, it has taken a little wobble to the east. And I do wonder that Puerto Vallarta might just slightly avoid hurricane force winds in there. I'm not saying that's going to happen. People should prepare for the absolute worst from this storm, but just a little bit of hope there that something that we'll look back on after the storm has gone by.
Yeah, it's going to be a very close call, I think. We'll have to wait and see, though, what exactly happens. We are continuing to monitor the two webcams in Puerto Vallarta very closely. Here is the first one at the Grand Park Royal Luxury Resort. The waves have, I guess, picked up just a little bit, but overall, things are not too shabby here. Another webcam here. I'll have to refresh the page here. Hopefully an ad doesn't play, and that's an ad. Fantastic.
Saw that one coming.
Yeah. But certainly conditions are not too bad here in Puerto Vallarta with the approach of Lidia.
Relatively small system, I guess. Yeah. So, and moving quickly. So the onset of it will be very quick. For instance, just looking at models, it was depicting that tropical storm force winds were just offshore at 18Z, and by 0Z, you'll be looking at 50 knot winds along the coast. And then shortly afterwards, hurricane force winds, and then of course the major part of the storm. But looking at its movement there, and it does move much more quickly after 0Z. So you could feasibly say that in the space of an hour, you could be looking from 60-mile-an-hour winds at the landfall location to 140-mile-per-hour winds within an hour.
That's crazy. That just shows just how fast the storm is moving. And thankfully, it is moving at a good pace, because this really, if this storm was to linger around with these kind of winds and this kind of rainfall, with these kind of cloud tops, I can only imagine how devastating that would be for Mexico. I mean, we saw how things were in 2013 with I forget that one storm's name.
Ingrid and Manuel.
Yeah, with those two. Yeah, that was very bad.
Hmm.
And those storms, and one of those storms didn't even linger over the area. I believe that was Manuel, who went straight into Mexico. It was mainly. I figured it would be very close with that code red rating.
I just saw somebody on the chat saying a Cat 4 isn't a little storm. We were talking about size-wise, not in terms of potential impacts. A Category 4 storm is a very dangerous storm, no matter the size. It could be a very small storm, such as this one, or it could be a huge storm. The size does not matter. It's the wind speed that gives the storm its rating, and so we're focusing on the size of the storm. This could hit like a freight train. It's a very fast and a very small. I'm thinking it kind of reminds me of Charlie 2004, how it was a small, fast-moving storm. Very dangerous impacts in a small area, high impact zone, but fortunately not over a wide area, but in that smaller zone where this storm is going to pass through is going to be a lot of damage. And then as it weakens into the mountains, there's going to be a lot of rainfall and flooding that needs to be focused on. But that's what I would see this storm behave like once it makes landfall, is a small, concentrated area of destruction.
Oh, yep, Ethan, it's going to be red.
For Lidia?
Yeah.
Well, you heard the news here. We are now entering, or will be shortly entering, TCOS Code Red, I imagine for a very brief period of time, for Hurricane Lidia. So that's our latest from Nathan for our TCOS rating. We do have a question here. How strong in winds and millibars, it's hard to determine per pressure, by the way, for forecasts, do we think Beloved will reach? If not, how about category? Well, it's pretty obvious Beloved's going to be a category 5. It's just a question of how strong. And if I had to make a forecast cone, I'd probably only forecast a potentially conservative 145 knots, 165 miles an hour for the storm right now.
Radar was not showing any obvious signs of an immediate eye roll replacement cycle, and the eye has cleared out now. This storm is approaching, if not at Category 5 status. It is close. It is closing in on that status. It is very likely it will reach that status. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. How strong? It's hard to tell. It is October in the Western Pacific. It could go much stronger. High end range, I would say the highest it would possibly go realistically is 160 knots. I would personally go 145, 150 knots at the moment, unless the storm does something exceptional. But yeah, very powerful storm. Thankfully, staying away from land, unlike Lidia. Beloved is going to peak and then recurve with only the Mariana Islands and then maybe a couple of the outer Japanese islands potentially affected. Fortunately.
Still indications more longer range that it could be a massive extratropical cyclone for the Pacific Northwest.
I have seen that. Do you want me to pull up the latest GFS, Ron?
Maybe, although if you're going to use WSV3, they'll update at 18.
We've got the Kona on Lidia here real quick, and I just want to say that, of course, our main focus impact city-wise is, of course, going to be on Puerto Vallarta for the immediate impact, but we've also got the massive city of Guadalajara down here over towards the east, on the eastern side of the forecast cone. They're going to get the tropical storm force wind field, and of course, that is a much, much, much bigger city than Puerto Vallarta is. Puerto Vallarta only has a population of around 200 to 250,000 people. Guadalajara has 2.5 million people estimated to be in the city, so it is much bigger. And with the impacts there, I do worry that with Guadalajara being this far inland, that people might not be taking the tropical storm force wind field that seriously because we're not going to get the core of the storm, we're going to be fine. Do not underestimate the strength of just 40 to 60 mile per hour winds, because even though those may not seem like that big of a wind speed, those can still cause some serious damage, believe it or not, especially to homes that are not well built.
I think flooding will be the biggest impact in a place like that.
Yeah, flooding is going to be the real story if I had to guess. I'm not entirely sure what the rainfall forecasts are right now, but I imagine that the rainfall totals are going to be pretty high.
4 or 5 inches. I think it's going to be more than that.
With that amount of flooding, also with a very short period of time frame, as the storm moves through very quickly, it's going to dump it really quickly, all that rainfall. So even if it's not that much rain, it goes down so quickly that it's going to saturate the water, the soil in the mountains, and it's going to potentially cause a high risk of mudslides, landslides, all kinds of nasty things that are very destructive locally, as well as flash flooding. Even if it is not that much rain, like the numbers might not be as high as perhaps like a slow moving landfall hurricane. If once this storm's going to come in so quickly, it's going to dump all of the rain in a short period of time as it gets obliterated by the mountains, and all of that rain is going to come down, saturate the soil, and the leftover water can't seep into the soil, so it's just going to slide off the mountains in one big flooding event that could be very devastating. Hopefully not as bad as it could get, but that is something you have to keep in mind with the storm. The primary threat, especially if you're inland, is watch out for mudslides, flash floods, and just general flooding as the storm pulls inland and weakens.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that kind of threat is oftentimes underestimated. I remember one of my people that I watch whenever it comes to hurricane stuff, Mark Sudduth. He always is very, very, very into informing people that water is the number one thing that kills people, and I am of the same belief. People oftentimes really underestimate both the power of storm surge and the power of flooding due to heavy rainfall. We saw what it can do with Harvey in Texas. We saw what it can do with a fast-moving hurricane in previous times. I imagine I could go on and on and on about the storms that have dumped heavy rainfall. But even though that this storm is moving very quickly, when you combine that fast movement, it's going to be covering a lot of ground very quickly. The amount of rainfall that's going to be dropping, I know that we've got a lot of rainfall that's going to be happening over the next 24 hours. And when you combine the mountainous regions, that's going to be some very bad news, and a lot of damage is probably going to happen.
Well, Ethan, an update on T-Coast there, assessing Beloved now at 155.
155 miles an hour. That's very interesting. And what pressure have you got?
933.
So bearing down on Category 5 status, and if I had to guess, it'll probably reach that status probably by 0Z, which is in an hour and 20 minutes. If not sooner.
I don't know. Maybe a slight bit later, but it could happen soon.
And what have you got for Lidia as well?
140 and 940.
So around what the National Hurricane Center has, albeit 2 millibars lower. We'll have to wait and see.
Not much reason to deviate.
I'm not entirely sure if the wind speed has gone up though. Of course, we did witness that extreme rapid intensification going from 100 miles per hour basically up to 140 in 6 hours. Hard to say if it's intensified since then. Maybe that wind shear is starting to get to it, or maybe it's starting to deal with some land interaction, perhaps.
Yeah, I would say at this point in time, it's so close to land, it's probably leveled off in intensity, which is good news. It's not getting any stronger. The bad news is right now this storm does not have time to weaken much at all, and it's going to carry that full strength storm surge with it all the way to lands. Uh, but fortunately, it appears that intensification might have been halted for now. And it doesn't have much time to strengthen much more, anyways, because it's right there next to land.
Sure is.
And any guesses on potentially what timing this storm could make landfall?
Haven't been looking. I'll be able to give you an answer on that when I have a look.
It'll be soon, that's for sure.
Well, let's just look now. So obviously, here's where the National Hurricane Center.
I'm gonna look.
Here's where the National Hurricane Center had the center at about an hour and 40 minutes ago, and it's here now. So, extrapolating that, we can assume that it would be around here about an hour and 20 minutes. No, an
Let's say about
hour
3
and
hours.
40 minutes. So
let's say 3 hours to landfall.
I don't think it's going to be just 3 hours. Maybe potentially 2 hours. I think
2 to 3 hours. It's hard to tell with the speeds on the zenith angle. It's moving very quickly though. Landfall is imminent. I would imagine those cameras, if they're not starting to see changes in the winds, increase in winds and water. No, it's fairly calm still. That's pretty surprising.
It's a tough one, Ethan. If you extrapolate its movement, it'll be just a tad above 3 hours, but we expect it will speed up. So
I think it might be closer to 2 hours then. So potentially just past 1Z, which would be 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, 7 p.m. local.
I think
I
so.
believe that's what it is.
Don't let the images fool you here. It looks pretty calm right now, but there's a Category 4 storm bearing down very quickly. The reason why it doesn't look that crazy on that image, on that camera, is most likely because this storm is very small in size, especially in hurricane winds. This will change, and it will look a lot more severe in the next few hours. And don't let that fool you. If you're in the area and it's like, oh, it's pretty calm right now, but I think they're overestimating. No, it's not. Very quickly, very powerfully, and it will just hit like a freight train. It'll be within a few minutes. It'll ramp up super quickly, and you will be not prepared at all. So if you're not prepared for this storm, do your last minute preparations as quickly as possible. It might be calm
At this point, concerning how close this storm is, and it's not going to be. This storm is not moving at 10 to 15 miles an hour, and it's not going to be this sort of gradual build up, and then all of a sudden, hey, you're in the eye wall. This is going to be a really rapid build up from. You're going to be going from calm winds, and then within 30 minutes, you're going to be within the eye wall. It's going to be that fast of a build up to this storm. So if you are in the affected areas, in particular in Puerto Vallarta, you probably need to be very close to your shelter, and potentially whenever those tropical storm force winds begin, that is probably when I would go to shelter probably, just because it's just going to be that fast of a transition from low-end tropical storm force to hurricane force to major hurricane force. It's going to be just a very short time frame for all of those wind speeds to go up, and it's going to be very dramatic as well, I think.
Storm Dennis says, any updates on recon schedule?
I don't believe
Is there
we have.
time?
I don't think there's any more recon missions into the storm. And even if they have one now, they won't get to the storm in time before it hits land.
No, we had recon into Invest 93L, and of course that recon flight is what prompted the National Hurricane Center to downgrade the area of interest down to 10%. But no recon is scheduled, I don't believe, for 93L at this point. and none, of course, obviously, it's scheduled for Lidia now that's going to be moving inland. I mean, if we were to get a recon plane out there, it would probably take them, say, 4 hours to get out to the storm. So, I mean, if you just go 4 hours, the storm's going to be inland by then. So, what
There's no point.
What's the point in going out?
It's just too late. If there is going to be any more data directly from the storm, is if there is any wind or pressure data. I don't know if there's any observatories in the region or anybody that went there to collect data. I'm not sure about that. Other than that, there won't be any more direct information on this storm other than damage reports. This storm, if anybody knows what Charlie 2004 did, it was just nothing and then a freight train. This storm is going to behave very similarly, I would say. Small, compact core, moving very quickly, and fortunately, the duration of hurricane force winds is not going to be that long. It'll be fairly short-lived because the storm is screaming to land, but it doesn't take. You don't need a day of hurricane force winds to cause significant damage.
Absolutely. Some people are commenting that the eye has clouded over. I think part of that may be honestly due to cloud cover, but I think part of it also is because of the zenith angle. As Nathan said earlier, GOES 16 and GOES 18's angle of viewing on the storm at this point is pretty similar because it's around 106 degrees west. There it is at the bottom. So you're really going to have so you're not looking at the storm as if you were right on top of it. You're looking at it from an angle, and that's what we call a zenith angle, and that can
that's true.
But the main thing that we look for unfortunately from zenith angle is the eye temperature, and that does struggle a little bit with that zenith angle. And of course, we do have a pretty bad zenith angle with this storm, so the eye is probably a little bit clearer than what we're seeing here on satellite imagery. That's what I'm trying to say.
A little. Even so, I think it is actually clouding over, Ethan. Both satellites are showing that.
Yeah, at this point, it looks like it's clouding over. One thing I will notice is that the eastern central dense overcast has grown wider as the storm has closed in on landfall. That could be due to land interaction. Not a clear indication of if the storm is strengthening or weakening. I would say at this point, the storm is probably going to maintain its strength straight to landfall. If not, it might weaken just a hair. But yeah, at this point, the storm's probably peaking.
Yeah, at this point, I think when you also factor in wind lag and everything, I think that this storm is just too far close to the coast to really weaken it of any significant intensity. Of course, 140 miles an hour versus 130 miles an hour landfall, the difference is going to be very, very minuscule. I don't really think that we're going to be seeing that big of a intensity drop prior to landfall, unfortunately. And this is pretty certain that's going to be coming in as a major hurricane. Last time that we had a major hurricane landfall in the Eastern Pacific Basin, Rosalind of last year, and that was 120 miles per hour. And here we have this Category 4 storm coming in. Going to be within the top 10 strongest landfalls in the Eastern Pacific, let alone the top 5.
Yeah, this is one of the strongest landfalls in the history of the Eastern Pacific. I think the last time we had a Category 4, I might be wrong with this, the last time we had a Category 4 landfall in the Eastern Pacific, I think was Patricia. Yep. I might be wrong with that.
Yep, that's the last one.
So yeah, very serious storm, and also a storm that kind of coming in at kind of a weird angle. It was most recurving storms are closer to land, and then they recurve mostly north. This storm is coming in more from the west to east path, more so than other storms, but not too unusual. A pretty interesting storm that was fairly weak, and then all of a sudden it comes towards land and just blows up.
Yeah, no storm has actually gone as far west as
this and then made landfall at this strength.
the only one that comes close is Tico in 1983. And that was already a Category 3 on its way out to sea before.
Tico also underwent a so-called jet interaction, as we call it here, which is what Lydia's undergoing. And that really enhanced the intensity right at the last second before it started to weaken. Of course, that is a potential analog for this section of the storm's track. Whether or not it loses any significant amount of intensity at this point, it just simply does not matter. This storm is just far too close to land to weaken it of any significant intensity, and this is going to make landfall clearly as a major hurricane.
Can you guys just check? I'm just looking at the chat, and a lot of people are saying that there's a lot of lag on the stream. I'm not sure.
I'm aware of that issue.
Okay.
Well, it was something happened a few minutes ago. Every other time I've looked at the stream, it was running normally.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the lag, so I do apologize for the lag. It does appear to be cutting out intermittently, thankfully. So any lag that does happen will only be just for a few seconds. If you have any comments or questions, though, send those down in the comment section down below. We do have one here. Is Lidia going to rapidly intensify anymore? It does appear that the intensification phase, I guess you could say, that it has gone through has come to a close. Very abruptly, it has to be said.
Thankfully, I think the storm's peaking right now. I saw another one. Let's see where it is here. Will Bolovan peak at 175 miles an hour? I will say it's likely. It's possible. It's definitely within the cards. Bolovan is in the Western Pacific in October in an El Nino. It is likely approaching, if not reaching, Category 5 status right now. And it could definitely get to 150 knots before weakening. I didn't see any signs of eye roll replacement cycle. So I would say 150 knots is definitely on the cards for Bolovan.
Possibly.
Absolutely. And I see you've got some radar in your background there, Nathan.
Yes, the one I've had up the whole time. Just turn my lights off, you'll see maybe a little bit better. So that's Bolovan starting to move away from the Mariana Islands. That's Guam radar. The eye of the storm is still at the very top there, getting right towards the edge of the radar view now. But even so, even at that far distance away, you can still see that the eye is well defined, and it's got quite a clear eye wall there as well. Looks amazing. If the radar was closer, you'd see it even more. But also a big shield there of rain bands that are moving along that southern periphery, and a few smaller storms that are moving along the very edge there towards the islands, and they may get the odd one or two severe rainstorm for a short period of time throughout today.
Absolutely,
definitely
and I think
definitely
that,
a very strong storm.
I think that that these kind of outer bands, I'm going to circle here real quick on my software here. These kind of outer bands are going to be the biggest worry now for Guam, Rota, and Saipan and Tinian up here. These kind of outer bands are probably going to be your biggest worry, and of course they're going to come through. They might drop heavy rainfall for maybe 30 minutes tops. Maybe even a little bit longer than that. But once those outer bands of rain showers move on through, and once this whole system moves further off towards the north, really that'll be it for impacts in the Mariana Islands, and then it's all pretty much out to sea. Of course, you do have the odd island out there like Iwo To that might get something from this storm, but in general, thankfully, this storm is going to remain far away from land areas, and it's going to recurve harmlessly out to sea. Now, the question is, where does it go after its tropical cyclone phase that it's going to have? That is a big question. I know that some models in particular have it blowing up south of Alaska. Pressure-wise, I believe they have it going down into like what, like the 930s, 920s pressure-wise, Nathan?
Oops, I can't remember. They have 920s now during its tropical stint, but extratropical, it's not as deep as that.
Yeah, very strong storm. Another question: how big is Hurricane Lydia, or is it a compact hurricane? It is a compact hurricane. It is not a very large storm, thankfully, but it will be very damaging to the areas that it will hit. It will be a relatively small area of high damage, and then further inland there will be an increased chance of flooding in a larger area. But in terms of wind and storm surge, it is going to be over a fairly small area because the storm is not very big in terms of size.
Yeah, absolutely. And the eye is sort of hit or miss on really what it's doing at this point. Just getting an update from our location here at the Grand Park Royal in Puerto Vallarta. The waves have picked up a little bit. I do notice that a little bit. But overall, things don't appear to be that bad. But honestly, if I was here and if I was a tourist, I wouldn't even be able to tell that a Category 4 hurricane is simply just hours away.
That's the problem.
Absolutely not. Yeah. What is a compact hurricane? It's a small storm, so it is all of its power, all of its winds, and its storm surge is concentrated into a very small area. How wide is the eye on Lydia? Just so we can get an idea of what
I can get that for you real quick.
the swath of damage. It's not going to be a very large. This is a Category 4 storm. It's just as powerful as every other Category 4 storm. It's just smaller than, let's say, a larger storm with the same winds. So it is going to cover a smaller area, but it will be still very strong. Yeah, it looks like 30 miles. So not a very. It's got a fairly small radius. I mean, the eye is about average in size, but the hurricane winds and the major hurricane winds are not going to be extended too much past that. Fortunately, the total area under threat is lower for those high winds, but it just means it's going to be a more compact area where the most damage will occur.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to answer your question, the eye is 30 miles wide. Just to answer your question there, Typhoon. So certainly it's got a pretty large eye as far as the Eastern Pacific hurricanes go. Average size, I would say. Of course, you had Hova early on in the season, and that was much smaller than this.
Yeah.
But regarding the size of this hurricane, personally, I really don't think that you can call this a compact hurricane, personally. And that is the main thing is because the wind field on the southern side goes out 110 nautical miles. That was from my video update I did this morning. It might have been a little bit less than that. It could be a little bit more than that. I'll check real quick per the National Hurricane Center's latest update. Let's see what they've got for their wind fields now on Lydia.
It's still not that much. But...
No, it's not going to be that much. They say hurricane force winds extend outwards up to 30 miles, and tropical storm winds extend outwards up to 140 miles, actually. So I think this is...
Really?
Yeah, I don't really think that you can call this a compact hurricane, actually. I think you can call this a moderately sized hurricane. It would be, I think, the correct term if you were to use a size interpolation. Of course, there's been hurricanes in the Eastern Pacific that have been much bigger than this. Guillermo comes to mind in 1997, and there's been one that have been much smaller than that. We had one earlier on in this season, actually, in Dora. Thank you, Dora.
Yeah, I was looking more at hurricane winds, and the hurricane wind field radius is not that large. Tropical storm winds are obviously larger. And even if you're not in hurricane force winds, tropical storm force winds can still be dangerous. It can still knock trees down. They can still throw, branches over, or like knock, let's say, like decorations over. It can still be damaging winds. It won't tropical storm force winds probably won't tear your house apart, but they can still cause significant damage if it blows, one tree down on your house or on your car. Is still very damaging. So don't take tropical storm force winds lightly at all. There's still potentially dangerous winds to be outside.
Absolutely. Keep the questions and comments flowing, please. Any fronts that will attach to Hurricane Lidia? I don't think there will be any.
No.
I'm just producing a forecast on this storm right now, and I'm giving it 35 miles an hour in 12 hours.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate forecast. Eastern Pacific storms that move into Mexico in this kind of general area and time frame do tend to weaken very rapidly as it comes into land. And it's really hard for some people to believe, myself included, that you can have this powerful of a hurricane go down to a mere remnant low in 18 hours after landfall. Just shows you just how quickly these storms have weakened over the mountainous terrains of Mexico. But of course, that same kind of thing that could ultimately kill hurricanes can be a very bad thing for life and property of us as well, because that can cause some flash flooding and some mudslides as well, and landslides to add on to that. That could be another significant issue.
Yeah, no doubt that's going to be a problem, especially when it moves inland. And urban flooding for Guadalajara and other locations that are further inland will be the order of concern there.
Somebody's asking how much rainfall will Mexico get from Lidia? It's hard to tell, but what I will say, most likely what will happen is probably won't be super high amounts of rainfall. It will still be a lot of rainfall, but I think the focus is it'll be a very high rainfall rate. So a lot of rainfall is going to come down in a very short period of time, which is very dangerous for mountainous areas, because that's just the prime ingredient for mudslides and flash flooding. So I'm not sure, Nathan, what you got for rainfall, total
Models
rainfall.
say very little, maximum of 5 inches, at least double that, and you might get somewhere close.
Yeah, so if you get, let's say if you get 10 inches of rainfall or 20 inches of rainfall, it depends on how quickly it comes down. So if it comes down all at once, which this storm could possibly do that because it's ramming into mountains, it's going to lose all of its strength. All that rain is going to just come out of the sky. And even if it might not be that much rain, overall, it could be just 10 inches of rain. Overall, that's going to build up very quickly.
Let me just read off National Hurricane Center on that. They're expecting rainfall totals of 4 to 8 inches with local maxima of 12 inches through Wednesday across Nayarit, southern portions of the state of Sinaloa, and coastal portions of Jalisco. So they're expecting maximums of 12, and yeah, at least that, I would say.
Yeah, but most of it will come very quickly in a short period of time, as compared to, let's say, a more gradual rain, flash flooding, and mudslides that could occur within the mountains as the storm passes over.
Now, Ethan, I'm working on my automated stream, which will take over after we're finished tonight. I may start it up pretty soon whilst we're on the air as well. Now, these automated streams include 48-hour forecasts for both of these storms, which I'm currently working on. And I am forecasting 175 for Balavan.
Yep, that is very reasonable for the Western Pacific. Historically, powerful storms reaching or even exceeding 150 knots occur even at this latitude and this part of the world. I think Violet of 1961. I'm not sure if that was in October or not, but that was a very, very strong storm that occurred at a fairly high latitude during this time of the year. Let me just double check that it was in October. Um,
And I'm also going to be pressing the live button just because these computers behind me are annoying me, Ethan, because they keep going to screensaver. When you press the live button in OBS, the computers don't go to sleep mode at all then. So anyway, we have two major storm threats that are ongoing right now. There are still typhoon warnings for the Northern Mariana Islands from Rota northwards even, and hurricane warnings, of course, for the coast of Mexico. In our second hour of coverage, Ethan, do you want to relay the latest from the National Hurricane Center?
Yes, we will. The National Hurricane Center, as stated before, has Hurricane Lydia, with maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour and a pressure of 942 millibars. We are expecting an intermediate update from the National Hurricane Center at top of the hour. I don't believe they've done an update statement. I don't believe so.
No.
No, they have not. So yeah, they've still continued that wind speed of 140 miles per hour, moving east northeast at 16. So it is moving at a fairly good pace, and that movement vector is expected to increase as the storm goes into land. So that's really some good news. It's not gonna be a one and done. It's gonna be a one and done situation. But of course, we are continuing to monitor Typhoon Balavan here in the Western Pacific. JTWC has the storm hopelessly behind on the intensity forecast right now. They've got winds of 115 miles per hour. It is way stronger than that, and I am actually currently analyzing this storm's intensity for our TWO, which will be going out at top of the hour.
Yeah, it is definitely much stronger. Balavan is showing an amazing structure, very circular, central dense overcast surrounding a rapidly warming eye. This storm is knocking on the door of Category 5 status as we speak, and could still intensify further as the night progresses, or the day progresses over there.
Yeah.
Very powerful storm, very photogenic storm as well. And fortunately, it's now moving away from the Mariana Islands, and it goes kind of out to sea as the storm now is peaking at almost certainly Category 5 intensity in the next day or so.
I just heard a rumor that apparently raw ADT on Balavan has 7.6, I believe. No, it's 7.5 actually.
I can see that.
Yeah, which raw reading? That's not final reading. That's just a raw reading.
Yeah, there was a 7.6 at 22:20 UTC.
So if that was to be a final rating, I believe that would be 180 miles an hour, I believe.
T7.5 is 180, yeah. Yeah, honestly, at this point, this storm Balavan could possibly be at Category 5 status. It's very close to that intensity. If it's not, very powerful storm. This is not unusual in the Western Pacific, even at this latitude. This is fairly typical for October to have these giant storms in the Western Pacific. Fortunately, this one is not going to affect too much any more land masses, really, apart from the ones it already has affected. Sorry. But yeah, very powerful storm, but unfortunately not the same case for Lydia, as that storm has decided to recurve back and intensify significantly right before landfall.
And I feel like that most people were really caught off guard with this. I know that some people in the forecasting community might have seen this kind of representative episode coming. I know that I, myself in particular, I've been expecting a major hurricane peak from Lydia from really since we saw that this was a possibility. But I was not expecting it to happen to this insanity of this high of an intensity that we've obviously been witnessing. I was expecting maybe 115 miles an hour, 120 tops, and of course it's gone well beyond that and gotten up towards the mid-range of Category 4 status. Of course, we were expecting it with a little bit with Balavan, but I think that has also exceeded the forecast a little bit. So really historic day, I guess you could say, here in the tropics. Once again, we were
again.
yeah, we were at this exact same situation of a historic day in the tropics on this exact day 5 years ago, 2018, with Michael making landfall, and here we are 5 years later with a basically a top 5 strongest landfalls in the Eastern Pacific on record, and beloved in the Western Pacific.
Yeah, it seems like both the Western and Eastern Pacific have woken up after an unusual lull in September. Western Pacific woke back up with Koinu, and now Bolavan, resuming that major typhoon activity. And then with the Eastern Pacific, Lidia, and then we had Max earlier on. This kind of activity is expected. If there was going to be a major hurricane landfall in the Eastern Pacific, it would occur in October. So this is not that unusual. The strength is fairly unusual, in my opinion. You don't see many Category 4 hurricanes making landfall in the Eastern Pacific. So this is a very powerful, very dangerous storm. But yeah, this is El Nino in action. Once again, after a strange lull in September. To be honest, I was kind of surprised how little activity there was in the last month.
It certainly has been quite a historic time. If you do have any comments or questions, you can send that down into the comment section down below. We'll answer them in due course. Why did Hurricane Rosalind last year cause very little damage? I think part of it is due to the area that Rosalind struck was very isolated in terms of population. But meanwhile, this storm is going to be going into a much more heavily populated area, mainly because it's farther off towards the south. Would you definitely concur with that, Nathan?
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Someone asked why Rosalind has caused very little damage, and I responded with the fact that Rosalind went into a very sparsely populated area, but meanwhile this is coming into a much more heavily populated area, and as such,
this one is far more dangerous.
Yeah, we're much more concerned with population areas. I know that Manzanillo is not too far away from this storm. They're going to be probably getting tropical storm force winds, so there's another city that's going to be getting impacts. That's on a major vacation hotspot right on the coastline of Mexico. Puerto Vallarta is as well.
I was just working on an image that I'm sending to you, Ethan. A visible image this morning of Balavan. You might want to share that.
Let's just have a look at that. Wow, look at this image. This is very historic. I have to just zoom out there. There is that image. We'll full screen it here. This is how old is this image?
It's very recent. 25 minutes ago.
Well, get your screen captures while you can. Very, very strong typhoon here. Easily probably a super typhoon. How strong will it get? Only time will tell.
Definitely a super typhoon at this point. I'd be very, very surprised if it isn't. It has phenomenal structure right now, and the eye is still continuing to improve. The cloud tops have warmed slightly, but also keep in mind that the sun has risen in the Western Pacific, so that is probably a factor why the cloud tops have warmed just a little bit.
Another factor of those cloud tops warming, typhoon, just to add on here real quick, is probably because the eye has emerged as well. And typically, whenever the eye clears, that does result in some cloud top warming as well.
Yeah, as if you ever take a look into the loop of Balavan, the central dense overcast, the clouds immediately surrounding the eye, has become more circular, and it has increased in size, which is a massive indicator of continued intensification and probably rapid intensification as well. As looking at historical typhoons, whenever you have the storm with the central dense overcast, the CDO becoming more circular, more symmetrical, more stable, and larger, that's when you have a storm that is maturing and becoming more powerful as the storm approaches and reaches Category 5 status almost certainly. I honestly, I would not be surprised if the storm is already a Category 5 with this structure.
Right. If you have any comments or questions, send those down to the comment section down below. We'll answer those in due course. Be sure to tag us at Force13. It'll light up nice and bright and orange for us. Out of all the hurricanes in the Pacific this year, is this the one most likely to get retired? It depends on how much damage and deaths it caused. Of course, the impacts are what ends up being the ultimate tally of whether or not a hurricane name gets retired. And of course, Lidia has to do damage first in order for us to even consider questioning if it gets retired or not. And let's just get through the landfall of this first.
Ethan, the only other storm I can think of this year that's been a blur is Hillary. I don't know how much damage that one did in the end.
We can look at the official totals real quick. I can pull it up real quick. I don't believe damage was too bad. Looks like that there was 2 indirect fatalities and $615 million in damages. So overall, that shouldn't warrant retirement, I don't think, in the Eastern Pacific.
No. Probably not.
Intensity does not dictate retirement. Damage does. You could have a tropical storm do significant damage in an area, and then that storm name will get retired because of the damage. And you could have a major hurricane make landfall and not do that much damage and not get retired at all. It does not matter on intensity; it matters on impacts.
Yeah, there's been countless Eastern Pacific major hurricanes that are still on the Canadian list today. Rosalind's one, Willa's one. I think Kiko's still around from 1989. That was a clear major hurricane at landfall, and that was very close to some major population centers in the Baja California Peninsula. Even that made it landfall as a major hurricane. And of course, look at that. That storm's still on the naming list. Just shows you that not intensity is its impacts is what causes retirements of a storm. That's not to say that there has not been retirements based on intensity. Patricia was retired based on its intensity, but we'll have to wait and see though what the WMO says in the early part of next year.
I think the most damaging Eastern Pacific hurricane was a Category 1, Manuel.
Yeah.
It does not need to be a relatively strong storm to cause a lot of damage. Manuel was only a Category 1 and caused a ton of damage in Mexico. Also thanks to Ingrid on the other side in the Atlantic making landfall in the same time frame. But yeah, you don't need a giant powerful storm to get the name retired. It can be a relatively weak storm that can cause a lot of damage and get retired. But as it stands right now, this storm is very threatening and is threatening a lot of people in its area of potential impacts. It is a very strong storm. Will the name get retired? It's too early to tell, but I will say it's probable that we will see some significant impacts in the region.
Absolutely.
Well, in a few minutes, I'll be ready to start the automated stream, which will probably run in tandem with the rest of our coverage this evening and beyond, Ethan. So that'll be starting up soon, just because I've got everything ready, and we may as well push it out. But we're here until the landfall of Lidia, and any more indications on how soon that might be?
I don't think so. I don't believe there's any. I'm really waiting for the National Hurricane Center's intermediate update, which is due in about 40 minutes, to see what they say on the track and potentially intensity as well. I'm very curious to see what they do with the wind speed in this update. I don't think that they're going to change it personally, but that pressure value, what are they going to do with that? I think that is a very interesting call regarding the comparison between the pressure and the wind speed. We'll have to wait and see what the National Hurricane Center goes. Only time will tell. Advisory is due in 40 minutes. A few questions have come in. What do we think? When do we think Lidia will make landfall? Personally, I think it's going to be in about an hour and a half, maybe close to 2 hours from now.
Yeah, not much time at all before impacts will occur and the storm makes landfall. Not sure on if the storm has weakened or not. It's hard to tell. I would say it is still roughly at the same intensity, and it doesn't have much time to weaken at all or strengthen. I think we should make it clear. I think it's pretty certain that the storm is not strengthening anymore, not by much.
Yeah, if it is still intensifying 40 miles an hour, 145 miles an hour, whatever the wind speed is around, this is still a extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane making landfall. I don't think that this location or this general area of the coastline has gotten a Category 4 landfall other than Patricia. So, of course, that might be a storm that you can compare it to in terms of damage that's going to be expected. But, of course, this storm is going into more populated areas. It's going to affect Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta pretty seriously, I think. Puerto Vallarta. My town's mixed up.
Bit muddled there.
Yeah, I get my towns mixed up. One's going to get heavy rainfall, and one's going to get the pretty strong winds, I think.
That might be one for the blooper reel.
Yeah, thank you. Someone
of
is
course,
asking
Canna
us, of
was
course,
slightly further north as well. Canna.
Just got a question here. Do we think that the Atlantic will reach the auxiliary naming list? I don't think it will at this point.
No.
None at this point.
I think now that the season has peaked, we won't see many Atlantic storms at all.
They're struggling right now. I mean, since Philippe, it's really.
Even Philippe had struggled. It was supposed to be a hurricane.
Whole life.
Nigel, I know, was supposed to be a major hurricane, I'm pretty sure, and then it didn't. Philippe, it was definitely supposed to be a hurricane, and it didn't.
And now
the Atlantic is
high chance in the Eastern Atlantic, which the ECMWF it still isn't fond of, and is that window's starting to close on that system actually forming.
Yeah, of course, National Hurricane Center is due to update the formation chances on that. I don't think they have already. But they did have 80% last I checked at their special tropical weather outlook at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You said they have updated? Or they haven't?
No, I was just agreeing.
Oh, but yeah, they've got 80%. Personally, I would probably continue with that for 0Z. In fact, there's the update now. They have continued with 80%, and they have also entirely dropped 93L down to 0% chance of formation. They say formation is not expected regardless of tropical cyclone development. This system is forecast to produce gale force winds over portions of the northern Gulf of Mexico coastlines by tomorrow, potentially heavy rainfall along the Gulf Coast by the latter portions of next week. This week, I meant. For more information, see products from your local National Weather Service office and high seas forecast issued by the National Weather Service for more information. And it is important to note that what eventually does become 93L, or whatever it sort of merges with, will also merge with Lidia. So you're going to have this moisture, this pure Eastern Pacific tropical moisture with Lidia coming up and merging with this energy for Lidia and 93L, and that's going to be combining into something in the Gulf of Mexico. Not going to form into any sort of tropical cyclone, but the biggest thing is it's going to drop some rainfall along the Gulf Coast in some much needed areas. I remember we have a former contributor of ours here at 413 that lives in New Orleans, and the water situation there is so bad that I believe they had to buy multiple cans to stock up. So this is going to be some much needed rainfall coming to these areas in the form of Lidia and 93L, thankfully. So much needed rain on the way for those areas.
Yeah, hopefully they do get that rain. I think when Patricia made landfall, there was a big rain event in that area, as that the remnants, kind of the residual rainfall just kind of drifted over that area and dumped a lot of rain over there. So hopefully they get some rain there. That'll be very beneficial. What is not beneficial is having a Category 4 making landfall in Mexico. Nobody wants to have that, and we are dealing with one right now.
So we have 2 active live streams right now. We've just started up our automated stream, and that will continue after we're finished here on our live commentary. So you've got 2 feeds to choose from. Of course, we're talking all about it here, or you can have more of a chill out on the other one, because there's always music playing over there, and it's just like sometimes I go to sleep with the automated stream. It's true.
I've heard rumors
but-
that the eastern part of the eye wall is actually coming on shore now, Nathan. Actually,
Yeah, it may well be.
I'm just circling the eye now, and maybe the extreme eastern side of it is coming on shore now. I'll outline the coastline here real quick. It'll just take me just a minute here in my software. Of course, there's Puerto Vallarta I'm going by now in the outline, coming around now to where we expect the landfall region to be. That is the general location of the coastline in relation to our storm right now. And you can see it getting very close to land now. And yeah, probably the extreme outer edges of the northeastern eye wall is probably touching land now, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely hurricane force winds starting to impact land right now. Potentially major hurricane force winds, if not now, very shortly. Yeah, so the real deal's coming. The main part of the storm is about to hit land. It's starting to hit lands. It is a smaller core of hurricane and major hurricane force winds, but it is a very powerful core that's coming in right now very quickly. So if you're in the area and if you're not in your shelter right now, I would say get into your shelter or your safe place right now. To be safe from the winds. Stay away from the shore because you don't want to have storm surge. Try to get to the upper level of your building if you are near shore, just so that you're not swept away by the storm surge. And just brace for the impact because it's going to be a wild ride.
Anything on the webcams right now?
That was just what I was waiting to check. I had an ad running. I had to skip it there. The waves I do notice they have actually picked up a little bit more actually. Although the first webcam has actually gone down actually.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
I don't
That
believe it's
is
updating anymore. We can check the other one here. I believe nope, there's no ad. Waves are much more choppier on this webcam.
Any luck getting that running?
Oh,
there
those
it is.
no, yeah, that webcam is also not updating actually.
Really?
Yeah, so I think both webcams might be down.
Might be without power there already, maybe.
That is unfortunate.
Yeah, both webcams are down.
Expect hurricane force conditions for those areas right now because the storm is now making landfall. We do have a few questions here. First one I see is, have you guys noticed the extremely similar visual appearance between Beloved and Tip? I also can't help but compare Beloved to Hagibis 2019. When you have a powerful storm, it obviously is going to start looking like a bunch of other powerful storms. So yeah, when you have those comparisons, they may look similar visually, but the intensity could be fairly different, significantly different. I would say Beloved is still significantly weaker than both Tip and Hagibis right now. Will it get to the intensities of those other two storms? Unlikely. Not saying it is not possible, but I would personally say it would be unlikely. But yes, very photogenic storm. It does kind of look like a smaller version of Tip, in my opinion. But, I mean, when you have a powerful storm, it looks like 20 other storms. So you can't really dictate intensity if it looks like another storm. But, yeah, very, very powerful storm nonetheless for that.
Lydia has peaked, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure as well on that.
So land interaction will start to take its toll. It's becoming increasingly asymmetric as far as I can see here, especially when you look at the highest cloud tops. Still impressive, though. Tons of gravity waves that you can see propelling out there from the center, and bursts of convection, mainly on that western side. And I imagine lots of lightning in there too. But it does look like it's being more dragged off towards the east, and it's having an adverse effect on it. The eastern side is losing strength. Land interaction is going to cause itself some big problems pretty soon.
Yeah, I would say at this
Got
point
your
the
stranger
eastern
up now.
high wall is going to be
Yeah.
affected by lands for sure. The storm is peaked in intensity. It is a Category 4 storm. Probably I would say 115 to 120 knots right now, which is a very powerful storm. It is being affected right now. I would say the land interaction is probably starting to do a number of the storm as it pulls in, and it's going to just obliterate the storm once it hits. Once Lidia hits the mountains, this storm is just gonna just disappear. Almost, it'll be extremely rapid.
What is the maximum cloud top temperature on Lidia? I'm not entirely sure myself.
It's fairly cool.
Oh, can't use this for that.
It'll
There
be
were
about,
minus 80s earlier.
I believe there are still some.
What was that noise?
No idea.
Let's have a look. I'm just having a little look now. Oh yeah, there's still plenty of minus 80s. Maybe even minus 85.
In that general ballpark, I would be for the maximum, or I guess you could say the lowest cloud top temperature, because they're the coldest. They're actually not the hottest. They are the coldest. Any thoughts on
Yeah,
the
it can get even more confusing when people talk about hot towers, even though they're the coldest temperatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you say highest cloud tops, it's actually the coldest cloud tops.
Any thoughts on the underestimated satellite estimates for Lidia? None of them reached past 130 miles per hour last I checked. I believe the 140 miles an hour that the National Hurricane Center gave it is mainly based on improvement from the reconnaissance aircraft pass that we had a few hours ago. They got winds supporting 125 miles per hour, and of course, based on rapid improvement after that recon plane left, that led them to go 140, and of course, which led us to follow.
Yeah, they're right though. ADT, NOAA ADT, only just about to reach 100 knots.
Yeah, don't let that fool you. This is a much more powerful storm in disguise. We have seen storms that look weaker on satellite, less organized, potentially on satellite, be much more powerful in reality. And it looks like this storm is another one of those cases of a more powerful hurricane. Pretty sure the jet interaction is also helping the storm. Definitely. Especially with storms under a jet interaction, they may not look as good, but they're still extremely powerful underneath. Just because you're seeing the tops of the cloud tops and the eye does not show you the full picture of what's underneath. Just keep that in mind. But yeah, very powerful, very dangerous storm. Making landfall an hour or two from now.
We are still due to have an update from the National Hurricane Center in about 25 minutes from now, or if not sooner. The latest forecast cone of Lidia looks like this. It's pretty straightforward. Of course, that was when the National Hurricane Center went with 125 miles per hour. It has intensified since then. The intensification phase has probably come to a close at this point. But the general trend that we're going to be seeing is a landfall to the west-southwest, or south-southwest actually, of Puerto Vallarta. Still probably as a Category 4 hurricane, and with rapid weakening as it moves inland and a very quick dissipation. And it would not surprise me, probably by midday tomorrow, if this is nothing more than a remnant low. If maybe it might not even be traceable by sunrise tomorrow.
Yeah, this storm is most likely going to be gone by 24 hours time from now. It'll seem to just disappear, which means, as the storm explodes or implodes, so you're going to have a lot of rainfall in a short period of time. But yeah, this storm is not going to be around for too much longer, fortunately, as it is ramming itself straight into the mountains and straight to its doom.
Yeah, Eastern Pacific storms do tend to weaken very, very quickly. In particular, this far in these regions as they head inland. This area of Mexico is extremely mountainous, and it can take down a Category 4 hurricane down from where Lidia honestly is now straight down to like low end tropical storm force winds in 6 to 12 hours, if not less.
Yeah, it is not a good thing for a storm once it hits those mountains. Not just in Mexico, there are other places around the world where a storm hits mountains, it just
Taiwan,
wrecks the storm. Taiwan,
Hispaniola.
Espanol is
Luzon.
another one. Luzon is another major one. I just remember with Espaniola, it was I think Hurricane David went from a Category 5 to a tropical storm as it passed over those islands. So yeah, mountains and hurricanes do not mix. The mountains always win.
Yeah, but unfortunately, that same demise for these kind of hurricanes can also be very deadly to people as well, because you can have landslides and mudslides due to heavy rainfall, and we're going to be seeing that kind of threat with this storm. So hopefully, people will take the necessary precautions regarding this storm. The time to prepare has closed at this point. The time to shelter has began. So if you are in the affected areas, especially along the coastline and in Puerto Vallarta, I would highly recommend going to your shelter now, if not already. Get to your safe place as the eye wall of this very strong hurricane is very quickly approaching at 16, probably higher than that movement speed right now. This is a Category 4 hurricane making landfall right now, and will probably be on land within the next 90 minutes or so.
Yep. Flooding, flash floods, and mudslides are going to be the major focus after the storm makes landfall. Obviously, with a storm of this strength, you're going to have those high winds, and the storm surge is going to affect, especially since this storm is not huge. But as it goes inland, the overall threat expands in size primarily because of rainfall related threats, flooding, mudslides, landslides, and flash flooding as the main focus.
Absolutely. We're also now joined by Christian.
Sorry, I forgot to turn that off.
Welcome.
Welcome, Christian.
That was quite a grand entrance, that.
You have
sorry.
missed out on a lot today, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I have. I don't know what's happening.
So to catch up to speed,
so,
Lydia
yeah.
has basically explosively intensified from a Cat 1 hurricane to 140 miles an hour, which is where it's at now, making landfall. And
Oh,
It's
God.
so
Really?
welcome to the Pacific in October. You have powerful storms everywhere.
Yep. This wouldn't be the first time this year either. Yeah, so, okay, I'll be honest, that is surprising. I mean, when I was at work earlier, I heard that Lydia had just been upgraded to a Category 3, so to hear that it's now a 4 is like, where the heck did that come from? And then Beloved, I hadn't heard news of that all day, so that's very surprising.
yeah, we've got imagery up on Balavan on our screen right now. Very powerful hurricane right now. Still monitoring the intensity for our TWO minutes or so. What will they go with? Only time will tell. It'll be an intermediate update, so we won't be having a update to the forecast cone. But regarding that forecast cone, it does appear to be that the center is thankfully on track right now for the forecast cone. So this storm should be making landfall pretty much near a small town, which I forgot the name of. I had it in my video update. I'll just be just a second as I pull the map.
Was it Miyato?
Yes, Maito, I guess you could say. I believe it's around there maybe a little bit south of there is where we could be seeing the landfall. Maybe close to Villa Del Mar. That general location will probably be the likely landfall area.
So the imagery that's up on Nathan's screen share right now, that's I was about to say Linda for a moment there. Lydia.
That's happened once already tonight.
Welcome to the club,
Yes,
Christian.
that is Lydia.
Okay, so that has improved quite substantially. I'll give it that. Beloved, I haven't seen any imagery of yet.
Well, you'll be in for a pretty shocking surprise. That storm has also blown up. Both storms cleared their eyes out at around the same time. Lydia has fortunately peaked. It is either at 120 knots or possibly slightly weaker than that, is my guess. Meanwhile, Belavin is continuing to intensify, but thankfully is going to stray further away from land and not be too much of a threat to and many more islands.
We got
until
imagery up on Belavin on the stream now, Christian.
And then, oh bloody hell! Okay, and how far away from Guam is it? Because I heard it was pretty near it last time.
Let's actually have a look. We can actually estimate this per radar. I'll have to.
Well, can you?
Here. Yes, I can.
It's moving away.
It'll be a hard call, but from the northern tip of Guam, it's about 245 miles away, give or take about probably 25 miles or so. That is from the exact center, so it's a good distance away, and thankfully it is moving away. It is moving off towards the north.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. So basically, Lydia is the bigger threat at the moment, despite Belavin's category, almost.
Yep.
Okay.
Belavin thankfully only really got its act together after it passed through the islands. But Lydia has done the opposite. It waited till it got close to land and has decided to explode. Not a favorable situation. We can only hope that everybody in the areas that will be affected will be okay. I hope that everyone is prepared, and if you're in the area, please be prepared. Please be ready. Have your storm plans in action. Be safe from not just the winds, but also the storm surge. If you're near the coast, that is a big threat. And if you're further inland, especially if you're in the mountains, you got to be wary for mudslides and flash flooding. Is going to be the main threat for you guys. So it's not just the winds that are the threat. It is water that is more dangerous a lot of the times. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, especially it's like you've got like surge as well, which is sort of, I want to say, the main threat, but you've got like really strong winds as well, which can be very damaging.
Yeah, well, the
We've got
storm
a question
surge
here.
and the wind. Oh,
So sorry to interrupt you, Saffir, but will Lydia's eye hit south of Puerto Vallarta? Yes. It does appear that the eye will pass just south of Puerto Vallarta at this point, although it's just a question. It's just a question of whether or not Puerto Vallarta gets the northern side of the eye wall. That is still a question that has to be answered, and that'll be answered pretty soon, I imagine.
We can really only wait and find out.
Just had a look at the distance on that satellite. About 19 miles from landfall.
So pretty safe to assume that landfall is going to happen within the next hour.
Maybe slightly longer than an hour.
I just a kind of an aside here. I just took a look at some recent imagery. There is a pretty surprising comparison between Belavin and Tip in terms of appearance wise. That does not mean that Belavin is the same strength as Tip.
It's not.
Also not the same size as well. Belavin is significantly smaller. But it is pretty interesting now that I just took a look at it. Those two storms look pretty similar if you take a look at them side by side. That is pretty surprising.
Yeah. And yeah, sorry, Ethan, just looking at your TWO, which is scheduled to go out on socials in about 10 minutes from now.
I haven't done anything on that yet.
You haven't? Okay. I just want to say, is that really what you're going with?
Ethan, what are you doing?
For Lidia, yes, I've actually gone ahead and maintained the intensity, but that's very uncertain at the moment. I'm a bit uncertain on whether or not if Lidia has weakened or not. I think it's probably a safe bet to probably continue the 140 mile an hour wind speed estimate regarding Lidia, considering a few factors. But the main one is wind lag. I think that is one thing that's going to come into play here. I think when you're talking about the wind speed weakening here, and of course I would not be too focused on the wind speed with this storm as well. You're going to say something, Nathan?
One thing I'll say about your graphic, Ethan, is that the text, the wind and pressure text below the names is very difficult to read.
I can read it just fine.
It's very difficult to read. But I do agree with the win numbers there.
And of course, we are still waiting on the intermediate update from the National Hurricane Center. Still has not come out, very interestingly. I thought they would have gone and done it by now, but maybe they're waiting until literally top of the hour.
That could be the
to get
case.
these out.
And then what happened to Max? Because last I heard that was a thing.
Gone.
Max did what Lydia's about to do, and that completely got destroyed by the mountains of Mexico. Mountains of Mexico,
very quick spin up
one.
storm that.
Tropical cyclones, maybe 0.
About to be 2-0.
About to be 2-0.
You're basically saying Max didn't prove its Max. I don't know, man.
Just going back earlier to a satellite image, that visible appearance that this storm has, and I imagine that it's actually probably improved a little bit since this image, right?
Yeah, it looks like it has.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a great place for my stream to buffer, so... Okay.
I'll fetch the latest image for you, Ethan. You can compare.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I'll be sure to keep that tab up then.
Yeah.
That eye has cleared out and the storm is maturing as a very powerful super typhoon. I think that is the 4th of the year. Or 5th, I don't know about the Koinu stuff.
Now this is a really good question that we've got here. When was the last time there were 2 landfalls in the Eastern Pacific by 2 separate storms in a 24-hour period? That's a good question.
That is a good question.
I think the last time was Vicente, I think that was his name, and Willa in 2018, I believe. Or maybe that was... Maybe I think Willa was just over 24 hours out. But within 24 hours or just at 24 hours, I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head an incident where it was.
I guarantee you it'll be in the later part of the season, though.
Yeah, it most likely it was in October, maybe even November. Probably not November. But if it has happened, I can't think of it, and it is definitely a very rare occurrence to have 2 storms make landfall in such a short period of time in the Eastern Pacific, and not just the Eastern Pacific, any basin in general. 2 storms making landfall within the same day is very unusual.
A more recent image, Ethan.
Yep, we can go off and compare these now. So here is the latest image that Nathan has produced. Wow, that is a very healthy hurricane, or not even a hurricane, a typhoon on visible. And here is the before and after.
So that new image was from half past, so 20 minutes ago. Not bad.
Yeah, very, very impressive storm. This is what we expect to see in the Western Pacific at this time of year. Powerful storms, moseying along. Fortunately, Bolavin is not a huge threat to land, thankfully. But yeah, pretty impressive storm this time of the year. Let's see how strong this storm goes. I would say at this point, this storm is very close to, if not already at Category 5 intensity, and it will at some point hit that intensity, I'm pretty sure. Let's see if the JDWC agrees with that. That is always interesting to see what their opinions of that will be. But yeah, very powerful, very photogenic storm. Fortunately, the stronger of the two storms that we're covering tonight is the one that is not directly impacting land. But yeah, pretty impressive storm, I will say.
Knowing the JDWC, they'll probably go 135 knots at 1Z probably with their
Maybe.
TCF update. We do have
Yes, they will.
I do apologize. We do have a surface observation report here from Steph C. We are very close to Puerto Vallarta and are not seeing any big winds yet. Looking at the satellite images, and it's over me, but not seeing any real winds yet. Just checking the webcams and no real waves crashing. So that's good news that the worst has yet to come in Puerto Vallarta, but that's also a little
Not
bit
really
concerning
good news.
because from the native 70-degree cloud tops to the edge of the eye, they're halfway between that already, and not much has happened. So this is a bit concerning that it might be a very sudden breakup or build up from where you are now to all of a sudden you're in the eye wall, and that might concern a lot of people and might catch a lot of people off guard.
Yeah, that's don't let your guard down because you're not experiencing winds or heavy rain waves right now. Even if you're that close to the storm, don't let your guard down. This storm, it will come and come right at you and hits very quickly. This is a fast moving storm, and in just like a snap, it's going to change. Based on those observations, it is clear that the hurricane wind force area is quite small, and very compact, but is still very powerful and extremely dangerous.
At this point, I think it's pretty safe to assume that the northeastern eye wall at this point is moving onshore now, if not already. So that we're probably witnessing the beginning stages of a landfall here, folks. A Category 4 landfall. Not every once in the it's not too uncommon in the Eastern Pacific that we see a Category 4 hurricane making landfall. I'll have to pull up the official list here. Just give me just a minute of the strongest landfalls here in the Eastern Pacific officially, and I'll have an official tally here of strongest of Category 4 landfalls. It looks like there's only officially 6. And that's Kenna in 2002, the Mexico hurricane in 1959, and Hurricane 12 in 1957. Never heard of that one personally. Those 3 were 140 miles an hour at landfall. Madeline and Iniki were 145, 1976 and 1992 respectively, and of course you have Patricia in 2015 at 150. Intermediate update from the National Hurricane Center is out. Extremely dangerous Category 4 Hurricane Linda makes landfall in west central Mexico.
Lidia.
They have called landfall. NHC has called landfall. That is interesting. Life-threatening
Wow.
winds
Really?
and flooding rainfall spreading inland over west central Mexico. They have gone with a landfall intensity estimate of 140 miles an hour and a pressure of 942 millibars.
They've held
That's
it.
very
They've held the intensity.
Ethan,
Hmm.
you called it Linda again.
My apologies, but that's interesting. NHC has called landfall.
That would be tied 4th strongest landfall in the Eastern Pacific on record.
I just want
Only
to
beat by
verify
3
with you.
storms.
Just want to verify with you, Ethan, that stat about 2018 being the last time there were 2 landfalling storms within 24 hours. That is true.
That's what I figured, and I find it to be very interesting that the NHC has called landfall now. Personally, I would have held off. Personally.
For another hour, I would say.
Yeah, the wording is interesting. Usually they say it's making landfall, or they've said it makes landfall. So
Yeah,
that is
under the
tense.
under
Past
the
tense.
discussion, they blatantly say satellite imagery indicates that the Eye of Lydia has made landfall along the coast of west central Mexico near Las Penitas in the state of Jalisco around 5:50 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So 7 minutes ago. That's
Alista.
interesting. With maximum sustained winds
I'm just
140 miles an hour.
Sorry to interrupt, Ethan. I'm not sure where I think this is a polar image. I might be
It
wrong, but
certainly hasn't on Ghost 16, and that's
yeah, I'm
closer than
looking at
Ghost
this polar
18.
image. I'm gonna send it over. But it looks this here. The eye is directly about to make landfall. I'm gonna send this over here on live.
Well, I think
Yeah,
everyone can agree here that we're not going to be calling landfall just yet.
yeah, I don't buy it.
Neither do I. It's quite close. I think it's quite close. But I would not be calling landfall right now. It's very close.
Neither of the satellites on either side are saying it. Ghost 16 is fairly close. Ghost 18 is even further away. So, yeah, interesting. But I'm not seeing any indication that this is over land, although the edge of the eye may now be reaching land.
Yeah, landfall is imminent either way. I did see that image. I'm not sure where that is from, where it has the eye kind of halfway onto land, but I'm not sure if that is an accurate image or not.
Absolutely. If you have any comments or questions, send those down to the comment section down below. We'll answer those in due course. In particular, if you are in Puerto Vallarta, please keep the reports coming. I do appreciate them. Multiple people are reporting that winds are still calm. That is interesting. I still find it very interesting that that they're this close to the eye wall and the winds have not picked up at all. I would have thought that they would have at least picked up somewhat, even to minimal tropical storm force by now.
Isn't that town just north of where the eye is going to be at? It could be that potentially the strongest winds might be getting hindered by the land itself, and that the winds might be a little bit weaker on that northern side. But yeah, that is pretty surprising considering how close they are to the storm itself. I would still say, hey, treat the storm as, any moment now, those winds could pick up rapidly, and the entire scene will change in an instant, and it will become a very dangerous situation. So it is pretty surprising that they're reporting the wind still being fairly calm, but yeah, I would still be prepared for those winds to pick up to hurricane status and potentially major hurricane status for your area. So be on high alert.
Let's go through the latest warnings. Hurricane warning remains in effect for La Isla Maria and Manzanillo to El Roblito along the coast of Mexico. A tropical storm warning for El Roblito to Mazatlan and Punta San Telmo to Manzanillo. Of course, implicated in the middle of this hurricane warning right now is the substantial area of Puerto Vallarta, and that is, of course, primary concern right now. I think it was something like 1.3 million people who have a 10% chance of receiving damaging 50-knot winds. That was earlier on, actually. That has risen a lot since then. I think it was something like 1 million now with a chance of hurricane winds, and it was about 4 million with a chance of destructive gale force winds. So those populations have risen quite substantially in line with the intensification that we saw over the course of today.
Absolutely. We have a question here. Will this hurricane be a depression by tomorrow? Honestly, by sunrise tomorrow,
yes.
it might not even be a full tropical cyclone, if you ask me.
Maybe.
If it's not a tropical cyclone, by sunrise tomorrow, to be a very weak one.
Yeah, this storm's going to collapse very quickly in a short period of time. So, its storm's already showing signs of land interaction affecting the storm structure as this is moving in. Once that eye gets fully over land, that eye will starts ramming into that those mountains, that storm is just going to collapse very quickly.
And it already does look like it's unraveling on the northeastern side, or perhaps there's a hole there at this point.
I think that's probably due to the mountains and land interaction, if I had to guess. So the
Yeah, they're right there.
weakening process has already begun, probably.
I think that's clear. You look at the latest imagery. Yes, it's not centered above the storm, but Ghost 16 there only getting probably minus 50s now. After earlier, just an hour or two ago, it was getting into the positives.
This storm has probably begun its rapid weakening trend. Thankfully, it did not have the time to strengthen much further. Unfortunately, it has appeared to be made landfall at peak intensity, at least according to the officials. So pretty significant landfall. It is tied fourth strongest landfall in history in the Eastern Pacific. Pretty big deal going on right now. First Category 4 landfall in Mexico since Patricia. Very unusual event.
Breaking news.
Force 13 has announced that Typhoon Bolaven has become a Category 5 on the Saffir Simpson Scale, with winds of 160 miles an hour and a pressure of 922 millibars. That is it. That is a call that was bound to happen sometime relatively soon, and that has now happened. Just to reiterate, we have called Category 5 now on Typhoon Bolaven in the Western Pacific. This is not a landfall call on Lidia. My bad, I call it Livia for some reason. But we have upgraded Bolaven based on an excellent satellite appearance to winds of 160 miles an hour and a pressure of 922 millibars.
I don't know about the pressure, but the wind speed, absolutely.
Additional intensification is probably on the way.
Yeah, this thing could definitely strengthen more. Very impressive storm that we're seeing here. Fairly small eyewall. I'm not sure if that is a pinhole yet. It is definitely close to pinhole status. But yeah, major storm going on in the Western Pacific. That is our third Category 5 of the year, at least unofficially. And yeah, let's see how strong Bolaven is going to get as it continues its northwestern track and then eventually north and northeast. Not a huge threat to land right now. It has passed through the Mariana Islands and is moving away from both Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands. Still some rain and localized showers possible there. Other than that, potentially a couple of islands, maybe Iwo Jima, might see some effects from this typhoon. But other than that, the storm should recurve with minimal impacts as it eventually turns post-tropical, potentially a strong extra tropical system long term. But we'll have to see about that. Right now, though, very photogenic storm, and yeah, worthy of another Category 5 status in the Western Pacific.
Absolutely, and we are still continuing to monitor Hurricane Lidia here. That's not what I was supposed to do. That was my apologies on that. We are continuing to monitor Hurricane Lidia, very close to landfall. Do you think that we could call landfall now, Nathan, or is it still just too close to call?
No, it's still not there yet.
Very close. It's within half an hour.
Yeah.
I'll leave your screen share up because I just have to post the our topical weather outlook on Twitter now.
Yeah, and I'm updating the information on the automated stream, which is running in tandem with our coverage right now. So there's 2 streams to choose from. If you want just the imagery without commentary, you can take a look at the automated stream, and that will be active all night now and beyond during the whole life of Beloved, probably. So that's back up and running. And of course, it's also covering the landfall of Lidia, but obviously we're commentating on it, so you'll get much more important, useful information here than you would on the automated stream. And we can answer your questions live on the air.
Absolutely. If you do have any comments or questions, please continue to send those down to the comment section down below. Be sure to tag us at Force13. It'll light up nice and bright and orange for us to read. And please, if you are in Puerto Vallarta, please continue to keep the observations coming. I believe still conditions have not really improved or have not still deteriorated that much in Puerto Vallarta, I believe.
How far is Puerto Vallarta from the eye of the system if it's like really, really close to land?
Probably about 30 miles now.
And
30 or 40 miles.
And people are saying that the winds haven't picked up there yet. That's very close.
It is.
Yeah, it must be just the eye wall that's having those high winds. Kind of unusual, but yeah, still be prepared for those high winds because they will. If they don't come, I will be very surprised. You know, given the proximity, given the proximity of the storm, I am surprised that there hasn't been at least tropical storm force winds observed there yet. But yeah, I would still prepare for hurricane force winds and a hurricane strength storm surge potentially in the area. This storm is now going to make its closest approach to that city as it makes landfall in Mexico. What is the upper bound strength for Beloved? It's hard to tell, but I would say that 150 knots is definitely reasonable to achieve. I would right now personally, based off of my experience with previous Western Pacific typhoons, I would say realistically, this storm is not going to get stronger than 160 knots. That is the upper bound that I would say right now for Beloved. So right now, I would say a peak estimate of about 150 knots for this storm. Very powerful storm. See what the JTWC thinks about that, though. Will they actually follow through and give this storm a Category 5 intensity, a Category 4 intensity? We'll see. So far this year, they've done a pretty poor job on that. let's just be kind with that.
It's good to see what word you're going to use.
Oh,
Yeah. All right.
I don't know.
See if we.
I don't know if you're able to on your end, Nathan, but if you can overlay the forecast cone over that satellite imagery, you'll see something very, very interesting regarding the NHC's position.
Okay.
It does make me question their landfall call even further.
Oh, the rough position of the storm?
Yeah, you can see on that loop there that the center of where they supposedly have it is blatantly in the southeastern eye wall. I'm not entirely sure what they're doing, to be honest.
Well,
Someone's just reporting in Puerto Vallarta, still quite calm, hearing some gusts, but nothing remotely storm-like.
Huh. That is very...
That must be eerie.
Yeah, I would say that's eerie.
Seeing all that on here and...
Yeah, the NHC has pulled a funny. I don't understand where they got that from because their center is... As at least from the satellite that I'm looking at, is not where the eye is at right now.
Oops.
No, it doesn't look like, but it's easy to suggest that they've seen something that we haven't, and that's quite possible.
Yeah, they are the officials after all, so I would refer to the officials. They are the experts. As much as people like to disagree with their intensity analysts, they are the experts. And if you want to, I would refer to them for any safety measures and general information on these storms. We are just covering the storms live. But we are not the professional experts. That is the NHC's role. They are the professionals. So refer to them first and then look at us. If you guys have no information from the officials, then come to us. But I would go to the NHC or the local meteorological agency, wherever you are across the world, for information on these storms.
You don't see much hype casting from the NEC either.
Nope.
Which is such a shame because most average people out there don't even know who the National Hurricane Center are.
Nope.
Believe it or not.
Well, last time I can remember the NHC hype casting was in their forecast for Hurricane Lee. And before that, Lorenzo.
Well, they've had moments.
But yeah,
I mean, everyone.
I would
moments,
generally
haven't they?
refer to them.
All right, still poring over this imagery and getting very close to calling a landfall on our end. But
It's still too far away.
it is. The edge of the eye is definitely over land at this point. I would say that as of 25 minutes ago, which I know is quite a while, it's still 23 kilometers off, which is about, how many miles is that? It's about nearly 15 miles. So it is getting very close.
And what's the
Well, when was
what's
that
the
image at?
movement of this system?
Sorry?
When was that latest image that you have at?
That was at 10-2.
I got a question here. Any video at landfall, what's the wind speed? The wind speed is 120 knots, 140 miles an hour, pressure of 942 millibars. So basically peak strength, according to the officials. Any videos of landfall? From our opinion, we don't think the storm has quite made landfall yet, but it will be very soon.
And looking back, Ethan, extrapolating backwards, prior to that, 50 minutes earlier, it was 45 kilometers further away. So on that logic, it's been 25 minutes, and that would be 22.5 kilometers traveled, and it's 23 kilometers from land as of 10-2. So if that trend kept going, it would be making landfall within the next minute.
Yeah, landfall is imminent. Pretty significant event going on right now with Lidia. Just an update on Balavan. We do have it as a Category 5 super typhoon. Fortunately, Balavan is moving further away from the Mariana Islands. Not a huge threat to any other land masses right now. Fortunately, Balavan is just kind of moseying off and becoming a very powerful photogenic typhoon.
All right, just got more recent imagery. Still no landfall, but as of pardon me, as of 10 past now, just 6 minutes ago, it's about 10 kilometers offshore. That's the center of the eye. The edge of the eye is over land.
Yeah, I think it is about a 30-mile wide eye. So part of the eye is definitely on land. The center of the eye is about to hit land. As we're speaking, landfall is pretty much imminent. The NHC thinks it has already happened. We think a little differently. Yeah, so pretty significant event going on. Major Hurricane Lidia about to make landfall on Mexico, the strongest hurricane landfall in the Eastern Pacific since 2015. A major event. A lot of major cities are at risk with this one. Not just for winds and storm surge, but inland with torrential rainfall and the potential hazards that come along with it. I just got an image from a different channel of Bolaven, and you can see all the way down to the ocean with the eye of that storm. I don't know if we can bring that up or not. I'll send it over right now. Here, I will send that real quickly.
Yeah.
Pretty spectacular visible imagery going on right now with
Very
that storm.
impressive. Very impressive imagery coming out on behalf of Bolaven, an extremely dangerous typhoon, thankfully heading away from land areas. But of course, our main focus is going to remain on Lidia, a Category 4 hurricane making or has made landfall. Depends on who you go by. National Hurricane Center called landfall about 20 minutes ago. We think that it was just a little bit too early. I think that we're a little bit too jumpy on that call, personally. But either way, landfall is happening probably right now.
When they're making 3-hourly advisories, I can understand that they called landfall.
Yeah, that storm structure has really started to dishevel now. The eye has cooled significantly. The northern and eastern eye wall, or at least according to satellite, the northern and eastern side of the storm is starting to become less organized. This is expected. The southern side of the storm is still looking pretty powerful, at least on satellite. Major impacts, high winds, high storm surge, both of them in a small area. Interestingly enough, reports are saying that there is not much wind at all just outside of the eye. I don't know how accurate those reports are, but yeah, pretty compact hurricane force wind field, it seems like. Fortunately, it is not that big of a storm, but still heavy impacts occurring right now as we speak, and will continue to occur as the storm moves inland and then obliterates itself once it hits those mountains.
We can try to check on the webcams again. I don't think they'll be working. I'll refresh this webcam here, and we're going to get an ad. That's fantastic. All right, let's see what
That's right.
Got a couple of questions here. Was it close to Category 5? If you're referring to Lidia, no. Top winds are... what's up?
The webcam has updated. This is live. This is it's updating again. I'm shocked about it. So the waves have gotten a lot more choppier here in Puerto Vallarta. But you can see, look at the trees. Look how close they are to the eye. Look at how calm those winds are. That's gotta be one of the most eeriest scenes I've ever seen, especially with the wave action. Look at that.
I got another question. Is Bolaven hitting Guam like Super Typhoon Mawar? No, it has already made its closest approach. It is now moving away from Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands. Right now, it has already passed by those islands earlier. And yeah, right now the storm is peaking out in the open Pacific. Fortunately, no major impacts. What is the chance of this coming around and hit Florida? As in terms of if this will remain as Lidia, 0. Will there be potential rain? That comes from the remnants of the storm hitting Florida, I don't know. But
Well,
in terms of it will,
It's sort of like an interesting situation. What's going to happen is this system is going to somewhat combine, I guess you could say, with Invest 93L in the Western Gulf of Mexico. And some energy and rainfall from that system is going to move on towards the northeast, bringing much needed rainfall towards portions of the Gulf Coast. Now, whether or not it's going to be a tropical cyclone or not, still I think to be answered. The most likely answer to that will be no. But it's something to note nonetheless that this rain is coming on the way for portions of the Gulf Coast, and it is coming technically from a Pacific hurricane. This is not the first time that this kind of thing has happened. Happened with Patricia in 2015, happened with Roslyn last year, and happened, I believe, even with Orlean last year, I believe, as well.
2 new images of Balavan for you, Ethan.
Just a minute, though. We got some news to break here.
yeah, pretty calm conditions.
Has announced that Hurricane Lidia has made a Category 4 landfall now on the coastline of Mexico. We have called landfall on this extremely dangerous hurricane. Made landfall near Las Penitas with winds of 140 miles per hour about 5 minutes ago. That's just my estimation, and I'm sure that that is backed up by the satellite imagery. That is tied the third strongest landfall ever recorded in the Eastern Pacific Basin, and I believe that is tied with the likes of a few Eastern Pacific hurricanes. I'm just getting the list back up now. Kenna of 2002, the 1959 Mexico hurricane, and Hurricane 12 in 1957. A very historic landfall, and the first Category 4 hurricane landfall in the Eastern Pacific Basin since Patricia in 2015.
Personally, I would put the landfall in between Las Peñitas and Vista Hermosa, if you're familiar with those locations, and that's around 65 kilometers south of Puerto Vallarta.
Either way, landfall has now happened, and we can now begin to focus on Puerto Vallarta. I don't believe the winds have picked up. We'll go back to the webcam here. It doesn't appear that things are too bad here. There is a gentleman down there at the bottom of the screen. That's very interesting.
That's brave.
Yeah, that's quite brave. Of course,
let's give him the benefit of the doubt and call him brave.
Yeah, if you are in Puerto Vallarta, you need to be seeking shelter right now. This is an extremely dangerous situation, and winds are probably going to increase imminently for this hurricane. The edge of the eye wall, I imagine, is very close to the city.
Is there another camera angle that shows the sky by chance? So if we can see if there's something coming
We can try this
on
one.
the horizon?
We can try this one. There's an ad, of course. Just let the ad play out before I try to skip it. It's going to force me to watch the ad. Of course it will.
Of course.
Watch the ad. Just make sure it doesn't.
The advertisement is more important than.
No, this webcam that shows a wider view hasn't updated since 1:30 p.m. local.
Also, bearing in mind it is getting dark there now, so even more dangerous.
Yep, very dangerous situation, especially as the storm moves inland, and now that heavy rates of rainfall will occur over the mountains at night. Flash flooding and mudslides and landslides are a major threat.
And you can see that camera has zoomed out there,
especially at night.
It is worth noting that we might not get a whole lot of wave action, as the general flow from this hurricane is actually offshore for the waves in terms of this hurricane.
You can see the clouds there now.
Yeah.
And big rain shafts over there in the distance.
Yeah, that's probably where the eyewall is right now.
Let me just look and see which direction this webcam is facing. I'll just be just a minute.
I'm sure that'll be pointing west or west-southwest.
It might be pointing north. If that's the bay, it might be pointing north.
Oh, lovely. Sorry, I'm trying to make an update here, and my Google Earth that I'm trying to get the distances from is crashing.
We're actually looking northwest right now, actually.
Northwest.
Yeah, northwest.
Turn
That heavy
north.
rain right there is probably where that eye wall is roughly located. But very unusually calm conditions right now for right here. Especially
Yeah, if I had to
considering
guess,
how
they're playing a little bit
close
of a
that
lull
storm
at the
is.
moment.
Yeah, it's probably just the calm before the storm for you guys in the so yeah, be prepared. It does look calm right now, but damn near guarantee it won't be calm forever.
We'll leave the webcam up. If you do have any comments or questions down in the comment section, please do tag us at Force13. It'll light up nice and big and orange for us to answer. Just some surface observations from our viewers here in Puerto Vallarta saying this hurricane is not in Puerto Vallarta. Anyone who is familiar with the area will know how far it is and how rough the mountain is between the 2 points. It isn't there yet, but it is coming, and it is very close. And while it might not seem like that you're going to be getting impacted right now, I would be wise to assume that you're that you're completely clear, because nothing is happening yet. This is going to be a very sudden rise into the eye wall, and people need to be seeking shelter in the city for a very serious hurricane impact that's going to be coming pretty much imminently.
Yeah, pretty significant situation going on there, and also pretty concerning how calm it is. Right there. It's kind of surprising that there appears to be very little wind right now, but that will change.
You can start to see the palm trees are starting to move a little bit more. And the wave action is picking up as well. It's getting closer to the I noticed that it's picked up in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, it is. It is picking up. It's still very calm though.
Because you can see here in this particular stretch of the area here, the waves are reaching basically right up towards this wall here, and it was only getting halfway between what the ocean and the wall is now, and it's hitting the wall now.
Yeah. That is
I don't believe there's audio, is there? Oh, there is audio.
That is storm surge a little bit. Not too significant right now. We'll see how much the storm surge will affect. But I don't think it will be as bad for Puerto Vallarta. I don't know if I butchered that or not. I probably did. I'm assuming I did, but we'll see how the storm surge will. Okay, that. But we'll see how the impacts will be. Just looking at the chat, it looks like the everyone's saying the wind's getting stronger now. So yeah, get ready, get in your safe place. It's coming.
Yep, here we go.
And
Puerto Vallarta at this point is probably entering the eye wall of this hurricane. So if you are in Puerto Vallarta, seek shelter immediately. Life-threatening winds will come with the eye wall, and you will not be able to move around during the eye wall. It's best just to seek shelter and stay in place until this storm passes. Of course, if you need to, in the most extreme circumstances, you can relocate during the eye, but it is quite likely, since this hurricane is weakening and the eye is clouding over, that this will not be a completely calm eye. It might be calm somewhat, but my recommendation is just stay in place during the eye if you do get it, and prepare to ride out the backside as well. This is going to be a long few hours for Puerto Vallarta, and I hope that everything is okay with you guys once this storm passes.
Got a pretty impressive image of Malavan.
Now, a lot of the reason why Puerto Vallarta hasn't received massive amounts of wind historically is its geography. It is a very sheltered location in a large natural bay, So it is often quite sheltered. I imagine this will be, by their standards, though, a pretty big hit.
Pretty
The
windy
real
on the webcam, too.
the real question really is what extent of issues we're going to see here.
And I've noticed that the wind both visually and audibly, if that even is a word, or vocally, I guess you could say, has picked up both in intensity
Yep.
and in terms of speed.
You're starting to see some white caps going on in the water right there. That is an indication of wind picking up. Still not very strong, which is kind of surprising. But yeah, it looks like the eye wall and the heavy winds are starting to come in, as well as a little bit of that storm surge. Although it probably won't be too much here, because it is in the sheltered bay.
Really looking lopsided on satellite imagery now. North side losing it, south side blowing up lots of convection, and the eastern side overland as well. But northeast part of the eye looks pretty crippled, to be honest. So weakening clearly in effect, but it is probably, maybe it's still a category 4, it's still at least a major hurricane, and will be for a few hours yet.
Absolutely.
You take a look at those palm trees on that imagery there, they're starting to sway a little bit more. All the palm fronds are pointing in one direction. That is an indication that the wind has picked up.
You can see that since this webcam, if you were facing directly out into the bay there, it would be facing off towards the northwest, and those palm trees are swaying down towards the southwest, which is the general flow of this hurricane in Puerto Vallarta. So that's a lot of birds in the air as well. Wow.
Yeah, I think the birds have finally got the message that there is a major hurricane right there.
I've never seen that many birds in the area prior to a hurricane's eye wall.
Nathan,
Yeah,
can I just direct your attention to the
them off
live
guard too.
transmission, please?
Yeah, just a moment.
But the eye wall is approaching, and once again, if you are in Puerto Vallarta, seek shelter immediately. This is a major hurricane's eye wall that is going to be passing directly over Puerto Vallarta. You can see that rain shaft off towards the left-hand side of the webcam there. That is getting really close to the webcam now, so maybe heavy rainfall about to be imminent on this camera.
Are you streaming the camera to the
The stream, yes.
stream? Are you? I don't see it.
No, you don't have the camera on there.
You
Oh,
don't.
I have Nathan's camera. There we go. There's all the birds. You can see them up there. Look at all the birds.
Also, your pronunciation is really off. It's Vallarta. Double L pronounces as a Y.
Ethan's been killing half of the chat with his pronunciation.
Yeah, it's Spanish.
My apologies. I don't speak much Spanish at all. I mean,
Hey, I don't either.
The
Yeah,
most
I
I
know
can say is Spanish,
pronunciation.
and uno is uno and dos.
Oh my god.
Oh God. It's Puerto Vallarta.
Thank you.
Wow.
Ethan Bruning, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Saffir. I really appreciate that.
I say that, and I absolutely butchered the name earlier.
You did, yeah, as well.
By the way, if you were in Puerto Vallarta,
Vallarta, yes, well done.
Vallarta, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Please keep these surface observations coming. I really do appreciate them. As long as you can do so safely.
Oh, where the heck is Iwo Jima? I'm sorry, I'm trying to focus on something else.
Yeah, Christian, are you working?
Nope, I'm working. That is Okinawa. I'm trying to find it on Google Earth right now.
Iwo Jima, it's to the northwest, the closest Japanese island from Balavan right now.
And by accident, I assume you're doing a video update, Christian.
On Balavan, yes. I'm trying to find Iwo Jima right now. Did you say it was the northwest?
Northwest, or probably northwest of
Just
Balavan.
look it up on Google Earth, you'll find it.
I am looking up on Google Earth.
So video update on Beloved on the way. Wind is really picking up now on this webcam.
I found, I don't know, I've just found something that says Ogasawara.
It's not far from there. It's southwest of there.
Southwest. Oh my god. If the application doesn't want to keep freezing, that'll be very helpful.
Yeah, Beloved. Speaking of Beloved, that storm has improved continuously on satellite. The eye has continued to get warmer. Very impressive storm. Not our primary focus at the moment because we have a Category 4 Lidia making landfall at the moment. Let's see what we got here for chat. Beloved is Hagibis 2.0. Changed my mind. I will change your mind because Beloved was not a pinhole. It had,
Well, they might be talking about Hagibis the second peak.
Well, Hagibis' second peak, the eye was significantly larger.
Yeah.
And Hagibis was huge. So that is not a good comparison, in my opinion, between the two of them.
Nathan, can I?
Uh-oh.
Sorry, need your attention in the live room again.
Christian.
Still continuing to monitor this webcam. There are still people walking out there at this resort.
Christian, let me give you a lat long.
It's gonna be very interesting to see whether or not people, or that pool on the bottom right hand side of the screen, whether or not the waves crash over that wall. I think they will eventually, to be honest.
That pool might get a little bit saltier.
We don't know. We don't know how high that wall is.
Right, Christian, it's near 24.8 north, 141.3 east.
24.8. Okay, and the system right now is at 17.
I mean that wall type of feeling. It can't be that high. I mean, they've got to have some stairs down there to the beach.
Yeah, but you also have to keep in mind that right now the storm surge is not going to be a huge factor in that bay because the bay is protected and the winds are generally not really driving too much onto land nearly as much as where the storm's making landfall. So storm surge will not be that big of an issue. I will say though, that pool will probably be a little saltier within the coming hours.
Okay.
Not the best day to go for a little stroll on the beach. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I think that that we're going to be seeing some much bigger wave action on the backside of this in about an hour or two.
Yeah, possibly. Now, getting dark as well at this location, everywhere along the coast, of course. So, rapidly losing light even in the last 10 minutes. That camera shot has changed quite a bit. So, it could get pretty dangerous. But I think for most places in Puerto Vallarta, it's probably going to be a case of hunkering down in. If people are over there in the hotels, they should be fine. Obviously, weak buildings could be a risk factor, and of course, the further south you go, beyond there, obviously that's going to be much closer to this. And I imagine impacts will rise very rapidly over a short distance from Puerto Vallarta southwards, given it the way this storm's tracking right now. Looking at satellite image, if I was to do another little position estimate from the center of the storm to the city of Puerto Vallarta, probably only about 33 miles, which is nothing when you think of some eyes cover 33 miles in radius, so you know it's not a massive distance at all.
It's starting to rain on the webcam now because you can see a giant thing of waters in the middle. Do we think that tropical storm force winds are occurring in Puerto Vallarta right now? Well, quite likely.
I'm not sure.
If you have any comments or questions or service observations, if you are in the affected areas, please do continue to send us down to the comment section down below. We'll answer those in due course. Be sure to tag us at Force13. It'll light up nice and bright for us. Going back to our satellite imagery, daylight has ceased over the storm, but you can see that eye has completely collapsed, though, Nathan.
Yeah, I've just been flicking between different images here. Let's see. Let's try shortwave there, and that looks quite interesting. Shortwave really blows up overnight, so don't get worried by that imagery. Water vapor. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of that. Let's see, what else could we look at? Those are the last visibles. Just as it was making landfall there. Not much else to talk about regarding the satellite imagery, just that I can't quite tell where it's going, but still a significant possibility that the center of the eye could pass over Puerto Vallarta.
I think the webcam has gone down again, unfortunately. I really hope that that's not the case.
Well, it's obviously possible with
it's gone down.
Power outages and spotty service, which can result from these storms.
I was really hoping for that webcam to remain on, I'm not gonna lie.
I think we all were.
Someone is reporting that they're in Puerto Vallarta. I just mispronounced it again, my bad. At a resort, and they got everything boarded up and put away. They have everything restricted, no phone lines, no room service, and handing out survival bags with sandwich, fruit, and water.
No room service?
No, I wouldn't have thought so, Christian.
Just for safety.
No. I mean, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone in the central part of town is reporting that it sounds windier by the second, but still doesn't sound particularly worrying. All of the shops, etc., are shuttered, still hearing a few cars going past my apartment. I still think that it's going to be a very sudden rise in terms of the impact that you're going to be seeing here in Puerto Vallarta, though. It's going to be a very dramatic rise all of a sudden.
They're saying the mountains are over 10,000 feet higher, or 3,000 meters in the area. So it could be that those mountains are just straight up blocking a lot of the wind from the south. So that the northern eye wall, at least for the city, probably isn't going to be as high of winds compared to the rest of the storm, which is good. Highest winds impacting land right now will probably be on the southern eye wall.
Let's hope it stays that way.
Yeah. And at this point, the storm has definitely started its weakening trend, in my opinion.
Well.
Another service observation says, still expected, we were evacuated from our resort, the Hyatt Ziva. They offered to put us up in a high school gym for the night, sleeping on yoga mats. We were lucky to find another hotel near the mall.
I mean, yoga mats are better than nothing.
Yeah.
Ooh, aha, I found them.
Please do keep the surface observations and questions coming. I really do appreciate those.
Tell us again about the rate that Lidia managed to intensify earlier today.
So let's see. So I'll go back to the advisory archive here while keeping your screen up, Nathan. So I'll go by Mountain Daylight Time. So at midnight Mountain Daylight Time this morning, it had winds of 75 miles per hour. It just been like hurricane 3 hours earlier. And then 6 hours later, it was upgraded, I believe, or maybe it was upgraded at the intermediate. Yeah, it was upgraded at the intermediate. But by 3 a.m., that was when it was upgraded to winds of 85 miles per hour. And at 9 a.m., 6 hours later, that was when it was upgraded to a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 100 miles per hour. And obviously, 3 hours later, it was upgraded to a major hurricane with winds of 150 miles per hour. And then, of course, a mere an hour and 45 minutes later is when it became, when Recon went in and found that it was a high-end Category 3, and that it was almost upgraded to Category 4 status. And, of course, the National Hurricane Center confirmed that status at 3:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And, of course, 6 p.m., here we are, getting on towards 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And we're witnessing a Category 4 hurricane making landfall. Or has made landfall, I should say. Past tense now.
And once again, the landfall location being 65 kilometers south of Puerto Vallarta. And movement continues towards, looks like to me, northeasterly at this time.
I'm sorry, what's northeasterly?
Its movement.
Yeah, I do notice that it has taken a bit of a jog towards the north of the National Hurricane Center's forecast.
Yeah, certainly. After earlier, it jogged to the east, to get it closer to the landfall, and now maybe a little bit north. People are talking about lights flickering, power flickering. So I hope people out there are prepared and are doing well during this storm, but it is continuing here. Next 2 hours will be pretty key for that city and all of those local areas around Puerto Vallarta.
Absolutely. Please do keep the surface observations coming. Loads of people reporting that the wind is still picking up. And I think that's going to be a case for a few minutes yet.
Stuff starting to fly around. Somebody just reported, and now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sayolita, saying that a house roof was blown off in the place he was in. That is pretty significant.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. But no doubt a lot will be going on. The actual landfall, of course, is a sparse area. You do have some significant villages along the coast, Villa del Mar, Ipala. These locations are very close to where the center of the storm struck. Small populations, but obviously substantial all the same. Puerto Vallarta will receive strong winds that could cause some damage. I think they'll be spared the worst of this storm. It's quite clear already with it starting to weaken now, but still very powerful. And most likely some hurricane force winds there. Guadalajara, I have never really been concerned about Guadalajara. They could have some urban flooding issues. And just to repeat that, because I think Ethan's signal went for a minute, Guadalajara there, they could have significant urban flooding issues starting in the next couple of hours.
I think that's going to be the big story there in that town. I forgot you mentioned the name of.
Guadalajara?
Yes, thank you.
Major city in the western part of Mexico. And the storm will move inland. It won't make very much progress before completely being scrubbed. And it will be a thing of the past by tomorrow.
Yeah, that storm's going to hit those mountains, and those mountains are going to be like a cheese grater, just tearing that storm apart. But in that process, Lydia is going to drop a ton of rainfall in a short period of time, which will be a major threat as it continues inland. But yeah, this storm has got it's got its hours numbered against it because those mountains are just going to tear this storm apart.
Absolutely.
Sayulita is 20 kilometers north of Puerto Vallarta. Ugh, can't say it. 20 kilometers north. That is interesting. If you got a house roof blown off up there, but let's hope they're okay.
Yeah, but a lot of people still reporting that the power is still on for the time being. I think that's going to be a thing of the past here in a short while here for most people in this region, at least temporarily.
No more cars on the highway. That is good news. Everybody seems to be at least paying attention to the storm. Hopefully, everybody is doing their proper preparations. If you guys are not in the storm already and you're in the path, you will be pretty soon.
Good news, the webcam is back on.
Oh. So we can see the current conditions there as it's much darker once again now. And I wouldn't want to be out and about during a hurricane at night, really. So not recommended, guys.
No, because at
It's
least
not
with
worth
daylight,
it. It is not.
You can see debris coming from like miles away. At night, you can't.
Even by day, visibility can be limited.
You don't know if there is debris in the water. If you ever go in the water, that is a very stupid idea. I've seen people do that. And if you're not in the water and you're still on land, you gotta be inside of a secure building at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember we were live on a previous system making landfall. I forget which system it was exactly. We could see on a webcam people were in the water. Now, please do not do that. It's that you are basically gambling with your life on that front.
The craziest stuff we saw was during Ian.
You have no idea if there's shattered glass, other sharp objects, if there's some log that's partially submerged that you can't see until it hits you. It's very dangerous to go out in the water when there's a hurricane or even a tropical storm. You don't know what kind of debris is in that water, and I would say just don't do it because if it's not debris that gets you, it will be the currents. You just have one rip current will suck you out into the ocean. Not an intelligent thing to do if you have a hurricane on you.
Absolutely.
So to reiterate, landfall, Ethan, how long ago now? I've lost track of time already.
About
an hour?
It occurred at 6:20 p.m. local time.
About 40 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Right. So that was landfall. Goodness me, getting tired here. And now moving northeast, inland, sort of, getting very close to the bay at Puerto Vallarta, and then continuing on in that northeasterly fashion by the looks of things. How much would you rate the winds now? Surely it can't still be 140 miles per hour at this point.
Probably, I would say 120. 125. I don't know. Part of the storm's still over water, so there's still some strength left. But I would say the strongest winds of Lydia have already hit land, and the western part of the eye wall is probably a Category 3 strength. Part of the eye wall largely unaffected still. That was probably where the strongest winds are still at. So I would say 120, 125 miles an hour. That's my guess, though.
A really powerful storm, and not very well forecasted, and no one was really at fault at that.
Nope.
But
Kind of a weird storm.
Preparations probably weren't as good as they ought to have been for that reason too.
Yeah. Fairly unusual storm. Stayed weak for most of its life, and then it turned towards land after being fairly far out to sea. Turned back towards land, which was forecasted, but the intensity was not forecasted. Heavily underestimated, and now we have this major hurricane that was not properly forecasted. We still have those. We have gotten better with forecasting hurricanes, fortunately, but this is one of those instances where it's just big fail, and it comes with not good consequences.
Let's go back and read off the information from the National Center, the update that they published at 6 p.m., just to get everyone in the loop who may just be joining us. Back then, it was at 20.1 north, 105.5 west, making landfall in west central Mexico. They say that life-threatening winds and flooding rainfall is spreading inland over that region. They gave it 140 miles per hour, that's 220 kilometers per hour sustained winds, and a central pressure of 942 millibars. Hurricane warning for Las Islas Marias and Manzanillo to El Roblito. A tropical storm warning for El Roblito to Mazatlan and Punta San Telmo to Manzanillo. Now they are talking about rainfall, 4 to 8 inches expected, with local maximums of 12 through Wednesday across Nayarit, southern parts of Sinaloa, and coastal portions of Jalisco. These rains will likely produce flash and urban flooding, along with possible mudslides in areas of higher terrain near the coast. A dangerous storm surge expected to produce significant coastal flooding near and to the south of where Lidia made landfall. Near the coast, the surge will be accompanied by large and destructive waves. Hurricane conditions occurring in portions of west central Mexico within the hurricane warning area. Tropical storm conditions occurring in the tropical storm warning areas. And swells generated by Lidia will affect the west coast of Mexico and the Baja California Peninsula for the next day or so, and they can cause life-threatening surf and rip current conditions. And quite often you do get indirect fatalities that are caused by things like that, as well as bad weather accidents and that kind of thing. National Hurricane Center will next update with a full advisory at 9 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, by which point we'll be off the air, but we will also have our automated stream, which is live already, and you can take a look at that on our YouTube channel. So we've got 2 streams running at the moment, and when we're finished here, we've got an automatic redirect, which will take you over there. So we got the commentary here, and over there, there's full of storm imagery and pretty chill music. I like to tune into that sometimes when I'm working, but there we go. It's just after 7 p.m. local time.
Potential. I don't have confirmation for this, but I think I have breaking news here in regards to Typhoon Beloved.
Okay.
I'm hearing reports that the JTWC went with 135 knots.
No, they've gone with 140 actually.
They have gone with 140?
have called Category 5. 140
Wow.
knots, 920
They overrode.
millibars. Just looked it up myself.
They overrode it. It was 135, but they just overrode it to 140.
Now, the JTWC haven't produced an advisory. Are you talking about the ATCF?
Yes, this is the ATCF.
Right. Interpolated ATCF is actually going with 165, which would be interesting to see if they follow that.
Miles an hour.
Yep.
Just make sure that's not knots.
Apparently, the ATCF has gone from a Category 1 to a Cat 5 in 12 hours.
Well, all eyes will be on the JTWC's official advisory from their part, the 3Z update, and that might be about an hour or so.
Just got a question in chat here. Do you guys think that hurricane force winds have reached the Mexican coast by now? Absolutely. The winds for that storm right now. In regards to us saying a Category 5, that is in reference to Beloved, not Lidia. The JTWC has appeared to have gone with Cat 5 for Beloved. Lidia, on the other hand, has made landfall at 120 knots, 140 miles an hour, and is now beginning to weaken.
Okay.
Yes.
For a moment there, they had it at 135 knots, and I was about to laugh. Point and laugh.
Well, they might still do that, but they should have the realization that it is a Category 5.
I don't know. I've seen worse. I mean, I've seen the annual reports on Hinamnor, and they had the initial peak at Cat 4. So,
oh dear. Okay, well,
they've done worse.
my update on 11 is now beginning to export. ETA 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. My goodness.
All right, so another video upload is fast
If
approaching on the Pulse 13 channel.
If you want, Christian, you can send that over to me and we can play it whenever we end our stream here.
Sure,
That's
why
fair.
not?
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, just to let you know, I'm actually testing out a new encoding process, and it seems to be working well so far, so that's good.
Let's see if the webcam is back on. I doubt it will be. I've got an ad, so I've got to wait just a few seconds.
Oh dear.
Buy my stuff before you look at current live information on a very dangerous storm. No. You must wait. You gotta buy my product.
Well,
About suntan lotion or something.
Actually, Typhion, just hold it there. Speaking of buy my stuff, remember we do have a 413 has a merch store.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Gotta say though,
that's right. If you're going to buy stuff, buy from us.
If you were to really slice the whole, really the whole storm as a whole, the overall cloud tops as a whole are absolutely starting to collapse on this storm now already.
They are.
And this is Lidia, yeah?
Yeah.
And it just looks like its structure is getting more and more asymmetric and maybe a little bit decoupled. So it's going to have a miserable existence from here on out.
As me and my gaming friends like to say, bye-bye.
Well,
that's what we say.
But unfortunately, we're not there yet.
No.
We're hearing from commenters right now that the more wind damage is starting to show. And inclement conditions with thunder and lightning being reported as well. Category 5 and maybe more besides on the way.
Is Beloved expected to peak any moment soon, or
it may still it could have a full 24 hours to reach its peak yet.
Oh dear.
I don't think there's any immediate signs of an eyewall replacement cycle either. So this storm, Beloved, could really, really push for it. Honestly, it could. We'll see how it goes. It could be just 145 knot peak. It could be 160 knot peak. It's the Western Pacific in October.
Yeah.
So it honestly, anything is possible with a storm. Very impressive storm in a favorable environment. Sub 900 millibar pressure is achievable. I would say it is possible with that storm. I would say it is the upper limit for Beloved, but we'll have to see how Beloved behaves within the next couple of days or next couple of hours. See if an outward placement cycle does start to develop. I will say it's likely one will occur eventually. But at the moment, the storm structure is just absolutely phenomenal right now. Very photogenic storm. We'll have to see how that develops. Meanwhile, Lydia could be the complete opposite. It does not look pretty right now on satellites. The land interaction is really starting to tear that storm apart.
Few comments though saying winds are getting crazy, lights out now in parts of Miscales and Bucarias at least. Crazy wind in Marina, Puerto Vallarta, worst I've heard yet today. So certainly a lot more interaction there from people on the ground who are in this storm right now. And once again, we hope you're safe in providing this information. We wouldn't want you to go out of your way in this obviously dangerous storm.
Please do not risk your life just to provide information. Your safety is the number one priority in the storm. If you are able to safely give observations, we highly appreciate it, but your personal safety is priority.
Absolutely.
It looks like the storm has waited till nightfall to really start having those winds affect a large portion of the coastline.
Do we think that there are sustained hurricane force winds in the town now? I don't think there is. It's a real close call. I'll refresh the webcam one more time. No, it has not come back online.
I don't know.
I will say expect hurricane force winds in the city. Just be prepared for that, especially if you're in, let's say, I don't know if there's really many high rises in that town, but if there is, you'll be prepared for some gusty winds. And some storm surge is still possible. Probably not as much in that bay. We'll see.
Excuse me.
And of course, it's quite obvious that this hurricane has also weakened a little bit probably prior to landfall, so it would not surprise me if it's down to a Category 3 now. But to exactly what wind speed, I don't know. I would probably say 120 miles per hour right now, if I had to guess.
Probably fair.
Power flashing, transformer engine blue. Yep. This is why you don't want to be outside, as you have wind damaging the power grid right now. If the power grid's being damaged, you can expect almost everything else in the area being damaged. So take shelter. But yeah, pretty wild stuff.
Still decent amounts of convection from the storm, particularly over land on the eastern side now, but the western side is definitely degrading substantially. It's a shame we don't have a decent radar on this.
Lots of 20-story buildings, tall condos. Yeah, those buildings could be experiencing a lot heavier winds higher up compared to at the surface. But those buildings hopefully are sturdy enough that they should withstand, the hurricane pretty comfortably.
They must.
If not, then it's a very poor building job. So that's what we got going on there.
I would hope they have building codes in places like that. I mean, it doesn't take
If
a
not, then
rocket
there's going to be a
scientist to look at the
serious.
map and see that this kind of thing can happen there. Still looking at everything. I mean, I'm not sure which storm to look at the most right now. Balavan looks really beautiful on the visible imagery. Ethan, I sent some to you earlier. I don't know if you showed them. I'll go and make another one because it's looking even better at every juncture
We'll
here.
get a visible loop up on our screen now.
Oh.
Courtesy of the 413 website, I will add.
Wow, nice.
Which you can view at force-13.com/satellite. I believe that's the link, right?
Certainly is. I'm just going to make another.
You. Can you just send in those surface observations if you are in Puerto Vallarta? They say, I hear debris hitting tanks outside now. Yikes! So stuff is now flying. So Puerto Vallarta is probably in the eye wall.
So did you say tanks?
Yeah, it's probably just water tanks or something.
Gas tanks.
Oh, gas tanks. Okay.
No, they have thousands and thousands of army tanks in the city for no apparent reason. We're going to wage war against the hurricane.
Wow.
Oh dear. What was I doing? Thumbnail. That's what I was doing. Thank you for reminding me.
There's
everyone.
a new beautiful image, Ethan, that you might want to show.
But we've got that image
To
up
be
on
honest,
the screen
though,
now.
it looks much better. It looks much better now than it did even then, to be honest.
And here's the first image you sent me. Compared to now. That eye is much clearer. Much clearer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's really got that big ferocious core kind of look to it that has like a gap between its outer bands. I know that what was that big storm in 2004?
Dianmu?
Yeah, that storm had a structure like that.
Yeah. Very, very powerful storm back then. One of the most powerful storms since the recon era,
And
in
you
my
can even,
opinion.
if we zoom into the eye here, I'll zoom in as much as I can. It'll just take me just a little bit to zoom around here and find the eye a little bit. Oh, it's over there on the left. Yeah, there we go. We're getting real close to the eye now. You can see the stadium effect in this eye, too.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at that. Look at that. That's mesmerizing. Thankfully, far away from land. That is the
moving further away from land too. Yeah, I would not want to have that kind of caliber of storm heading towards land right now.
Yeah, I don't think I can get any better resolution than that.
Just got a question for you. What is the estimated time for Lidia to pass those in Puerto Vallarta? I imagine, Nathan, you'd be the best to answer this personally.
For the worst to pass, it could still be another 2 hours the way it's going. It shouldn't be more than that.
Because it's pretty clear to me that Puerto Vallarta is not going to get the eye.
Really?
They might get the extreme northern side of it, but any journey into the eye will be extremely short.
Not from what I'm seeing. I think they will get the eye.
Interesting. I might be estimating their position to be far too north then. But either way, they're going to get the eye wall.
I'm going to see if I can get any more images here. Balavan, I mean, you don't see things like this every day.
No, you really don't.
Oops. There we go. Right. That is the video update on Balavan Public.
Oh, it's out?
It is out.
Right, I guess
Yep.
we'll wait on that final image from Nathan, and then we'll go on over to the video update from Christian.
Great.
Yeah, just gonna see. Struggling to get anything running. No, you may as well go to that update, Ethan.
We can wait. We're fine.
Nah, the resolution isn't so good.
Oh, the resolution's terrible.
Balavan.
No.
What?
Come on. I wanted to see it.
Oh, actually, that there might be something else. Hold on.
Oh.
I was choosing the wrong camera again. Fine, this will do.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. Mesmerizing.
Somebody
Balavan
saying,
right now.
did ATCF go with 160 mile an hour for Balavan? Yes, they did. We'll see if the JTWC follows up with that. Knowing their record, it's a 50-50.
I can check if they already released their
Yeah.
advisory, because sometimes they do this early. Let's have a bit of a gander. Let's have a look. And they have not.
No.
Either way, it is very hard to believe that in just probably over 3 days, this beast will be post-tropical.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it tends to happen.
very quick end for both of these big Eastern Pacific, big Pacific storms. Of course, you got the very rapid dissipation ongoing of Lidia, and you've got the post-tropical transition on the way from Balavan. But first, we've got to get through the eye wall of Lidia passing over Puerto Vallarta. I said it again. My apologies. Puerto Vallarta, and of course Balavan's Category 5 peak. And then what's next?
Yeah.
What's next after that in the tropics? We don't really know.
Goodness knows.
What are the invest designations right now?
Well, we've got 93L out there in the western Gulf of Mexico. That's dead. And we've got 92L in the eastern tropical Atlantic. That might try to form. Still a small chance that it might not form, actually. And that one's going to head out to sea and probably remain fairly weak. Then after that, nobody knows. We don't really have any other areas of interest out there.
Just look at the power in that image, Ethan.
All right, let's get this image up on the screen here. Wow, look at this. That is pure Western Pacific power there.
It is.
Remarkable
And my
imagery.
screen is buffering again.
Remarkable imagery coming from you, Nathan. I really do appreciate that. And thankfully this storm once again is remaining far away from land. What's the distance from Iwo To right now?
Oh, quite a distance.
If I remember correctly, I'm not sure if you asked for this, but it's a fair distance away from Iwo Jima. It's of course heading away in that it's heading towards Iwo Jima right now, but it's heading away from like Saipan, Rotu, and Guam. Saipan being the closest right about now. According to my video update, it was 177 miles away from Saipan, 547 miles away from Iwo Jima.
And there were still typhoon warnings in effect for some of those islands.
I
Oh,
imagine those will be dropped pretty much in short order, if not already.
no, they need to be dropped.
Yeah, given that the storm is at this point pulling away from those islands. That's all from us here at 413. We've run out of time, unfortunately. I'm quite tired, to be honest. And we're now going to go over to Christian's video update for the latest information on Typhoon Balavan. Have a safe night.
And after that, Ethan,
hang on a second. Have a safe night if you are in Puerto Vallarta and continue to seek shelter as the eye wall is getting close, if not passing over the city. And we will have an automated stream after this stream And
There we go.
that is where you can cover the latest on the other systems around the tropics. You wanted to say something, Nathan?
I just wanted to make sure you mentioned that,
Yeah.
automatic redirect over to
He wanted to make sure you mentioned his ass.
automated stream.
No, that's
Automated
fine.
streaming service, yes.
Have a good
Well done.
night, and here's the video update from Christian.
Palawan,
Yep.
another Category 5 headed away
is the
from Guam. The West Pacific scores another Category 5 in the form of Palawan, 17.2 degrees north and 144 degrees west, headed away from Guam right now with a wind speed of 160 miles an hour. That's 260 kilometers an hour, a central pressure of 922 millibars, or 27.23 inches of mercury, headed north-northwest at 10 miles an hour, 16 kilometers an hour, 9 knots, like I said, away from Guam. The wind fields of the system, the largest being the southwest at 160 nautical miles, followed by the northwest at 110, the northeast at 115, and the southeast at 120. There are no warnings or watches in effect right now, as this system is headed away from land and is not expected to impact any more land areas. Currently 177 miles away from Saipan, 222 from Rota, and 251 from Guam, headed away from those land areas. 547 miles away from Iwo Jima and 1298 away from Tokyo. I was not expected to impact those land areas, but yeah, as you'll see with the cone in just a few short moments. Here we go. So as you can see, I'm not sure how up to date this cone is, but this system is expected to eventually curve to the north and then the northeast. The development, or this system could be peaking. I have no idea if it is at peak or if it is still intensifying. Storm force winds, like I said, not expected to impact any land areas, 34 knot or 64 knot wise. As you can see, just passing the Mariana Islands right now. Same thing with the hurricane force winds as well, the 64 knot winds. Not expected to impact any land areas, headed away from the Mariana Islands, expected to make a gradual curve to the northeast in a few days' time. So the multimodal diagnostics, once again, they take this system to be quite powerful, even though the system already is very powerful. Just attained Category 5. Shear remains on the very down low, or there is a model split right about there. Sea surface temperatures the models are in agreement with, which is fine. Expected to drop off in a few days as well. So here is the satellite imagery of both visible and infrared, and again, just look at this very picturesque system, not expected to impact any land areas, and as of Force 13's latest estimate, has now attained Category 5 equivalent intensity.